And we're live. Welcome one and one. Welcome all. I'm Dave.
And I'm Steve.
And tonight, an interesting case from the very early 1960s. One of the big three abduction cases, I suppose you could say, arguably. The Betty and Barney Hill encounter or abduction case. I think it stands along with Travis Walton and perhaps Whitley Strieber as being, like I say, one of the big three. So it's New Hampshire, USA, September 1961, Steve.
It certainly was. It was a few days before one of the biggest storms that they had around that time as well. So it was definitely a time in New Hampshire where things were, shall we say, memorable.
Okay, very, very cool. Okay, so it makes sense to start things up as we mean to go along. Let's bring up the screen of doom, the screen of information where all the juicy goodness lies, I suppose you could say. So the Hill abduction, September 19th to 20th, 1961. And of course, we're talking about Betty and Barney Hill, a mixed race couple, which was fairly, you know,
unusual for that time.
Yeah, for the 1960s. So if you want to kick us off, Steve, I'll bring in a couple of pictures and slides regarding the hills and stuff.
Okie dokie. Okay, just get back over to it. Hill abduction. This is the first encounter, as you'll see as we go along. The actual abduction was actually split into two encounters, and you'll see why as we go along. Bear with me.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'll quickly actually put up a picture of the hills. Let's have a look at Betty and Barney Hill before we start this. Okay, thanks. Let's share the screen with you guys. Okay. So here's the hills.
And
okay.
Dulcie the dog.
And Dulcie the dog. Yeah, there we go. So Betty and Barney Hill. And a version of the car. I think theirs was black, weren't it, Steve? But I don't suppose that matters.
Not really, no. It's still a car.
Still a car. There you go. It still goes from A to B in most cases. So Betty and Barney Hill and Dulcie the dog. Depends what type of car you get, whether it goes from A to B, I suppose.
An A to B mobile.
An A to B mobile, yeah. The famous A to B mobile. Okay, let's go.
We should have had like one of those little graphics of a car going along, but I just didn't have time to do it. Right, okay, so at the top we've got Colebrook. Now, on the night of September the 20th, the Hills and the Pet Dash-on-Dels were returning back home from a holiday at Niagara Falls and going back home to Portsmouth in New Hampshire via US 3, which you can see on here. It's where the trees are, that's the route, and that's the route they would have taken. Now, at around 2200, 2205, 10, the Hills left a restaurant, most probably the Speed Chef in Colebrook, because that was the only restaurant that stayed open late night and early mornings. They set off towards Portsmouth, southwards on US Route 3. And that route is predominantly not lit at night. And at that time of night, had very little traffic. If you actually go online, I've had a look to try and find footage of, driving at night on Route 3. Can't find one, but you can find footage of them driving during the day. And I'll tell you what, it's desolate. So if you can imagine somewhere like, I don't know, Shap, some ridiculous places like that with no lights, that's what you're looking at there. Anyway, as they approached Grovetown, Betty thought she'd spotted her first ever satellite. But when the object changed course, she realised it wasn't a satellite at all. She was fascinated by the object's erratic movements and the fact that it travelled across the face of the moon. Betty then asked Barney to pull over so she could get a better look. 20 miles south of Lancaster and south of Twin Mountains, Barney pulled over whilst Betty got out of the passenger side to use her 7x50 Crescent binoculars. Barney saw rubbish bins where they had stopped, and fearing bears, he walked the dog to the boot of the car and took a gun that he kept in there and put it in his pocket. Barney got the binoculars from Betty and watched the object that he still believed to be a plane. It made a turn in the distance as though it was heading towards Vermont, but it kept its turn going and started back in the direction towards the hills. Fearing that it was heading straight towards them, he told Betty that they had best go. They both got back in the car and headed back onto the highway, and although angry and impatient with Betty, Barney found himself continuing to watch the unconventional craft as he drove along Route 3. Now, as they passed through Franconia Notch, they could see Cannon Mountain, which I've made up there with a little X, so everybody knows where Cannon Mountain is. Cannon Mountain is going to be important for 3 reasons. There's a lookout station based there with a beacon that shines out, an aerial tramway, and a restaurant, but we'll look at these later on. They briefly stopped the car to quickly observe the erratic movement of the object and noticed that it was spinning or rotating. They pulled the car in at the Old Man of the Mountain landmark to observe the object again. Barney, still thinking it was an aircraft of some kind, reasoned that it couldn't be a small Piper Cub as it was moving too fast. And then
I'll quickly point out this Old Man of the Mountain, actually, because it's quite an interesting looking landmark. For those who haven't seen it, you can sort of see why it's called that.
That's Indian Head. That's
Indian Head. It is. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Actually, that is Old Man.
Oh well, according to mine, it's Indian Head, but don't matter.
No, that's Old Man. That, yeah.
Okay, never mind. Right, where are we up to?
The Piper Cub.
Right, yeah. He said it couldn't have been a small Piper Cub as it was moving too fast, and attempted to convince himself it was a military jet. Yet he estimated the object was probably only 1,000 feet away, yet he couldn't hear either an engine or a jet. Barney was becoming alarmed at the fact there was no traffic coming either way, and he felt they were quite alone and set off once again onto the highway.
So he's obviously going to know what a Piper Cub is because it's fairly standoutish against, as you can see there, it's the type of object that they're witnessing. And so there's a Piper Cub for those who don't know, yeah. So a Piper Cub.
Yep. So that they then moved forward at a place called the Flume. There's a visitors park there, and he pulled up there so he could have another look at it. But that's when he noticed he couldn't see anything because there was trees in the way. So they dived quickly back in the car and drove just a mile southward from the Flume. That's where they reached Indian Head, and Barney felt as though he felt the area was less barren, and then therefore carried on following Route 3. He thought it was more in like civilization at that point.
There's Indian Head there.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my fault. I've got all my stuff back to front here. I've got a desk full of all sorts.
Again, another standoutish landmark. So, of course, you could argue that because there's so many landmarks like this. I mean, it's going to be a memorable drive for them, obviously for more than one reason. But they're going to recognise landmarks at certain points of the journey and what they're seeing because these areas are so standoutish.
Yeah. Okay, so 1 mile past Indian Head, there was a curve in the road, and excuse me, Barney had to stop the car in the middle of the road. The object that apparently had been following was now there in front and right of them, about 250 feet away and hovering 100 feet up over in a field. Barney described it like a big pancake with windows and lights, not lights, just like one big light. The curved sides of the hovering disc also seemed to have red lights on the side that appeared to be about 60 to 80 feet in diameter. Barney took the binoculars off Betty to get a better look, opened the car door, and leaned on the roof to look at the object. Barney stepped away from the car, and the object quickly moved within 100 feet in front of the car and hovered over the field on the left-hand side of the road, and all done with no noise from the craft. Barney then headed towards the field, stopping intermittently to look through the binoculars, and became fascinated as the object began to descend in his direction. He could see about 8 to 11 figures at the windows of the craft, and they were watching him. And he would say that they reminded him that they were working with precision like German officers. The craft was getting closer, and the figures burst into activity, looking like they were activating levers. The 2 outside red lights seemed to be extending on fins, and one figure remained at the window staring at Barney, whilst the other figures were busying themselves. The UFO was now taking up all the field of vision of the binocular, and the figure at the window was now frightening Barney. He felt the intense concentration of the figure, though it was intent on doing something. Barney felt he was going to be captured like a bug in a net, and finally accepted this was not a conventional aircraft, and the beings were not humans but something superior. The UFO was now close enough that Barney could see the figures in the window with the naked eye. Strangely enough, though, it appeared that no light from the UFO fell to the ground. Barney panicked, and Betty, worried for her husband's safety, watched as he ran towards the car, laughing and crying hysterically and repeating, "They're going to capture us." At that, he jumped into the car and drove off down the highway at high speed to get away from the UFO, but it appeared above the car. There was then a set of rhythmic buzzing tones or beeps alongside a penetrating vibration. They drove on down the road in silence until somewhere near Ashland they heard a second set of beeping sounds. They had a vague memory of a roadblock, a fiery red-orange orb on the ground, and then they looked for a restaurant to stop at but couldn't find one, so continued to drive on to Concord, then join Route 4 and head for Portsmouth. They expected it to be around 3 a.m, but the sun was starting to come up. That's part one.
Very interesting. I think it's fair to say that Barney exhibits the same kind of response that most people would if they were in that situation, beyond a shadow of a doubt. You know, I mean, the interest obviously got him, but then like saving his own backside got the better of him, and obviously he fled.
Definitely. I mean, come on.
Back to the car, yeah.
You know, no matter how interested you are in any form of subject, I'm damn sure. I mean, I know damn well if I pulled up at the side of the road and something appeared and there's people in the window, I'm not going to be saying, I'll just see how many photographs I can take on my phone. I'd be in my car.
That is true.
Like a bat out of hell, I'm telling you.
Absolutely gone. Okay, so that's the first sort of stage of it. I mean, like you say, this is broken into two elements, really, isn't it? Yeah. Two parts. This case. So that's the first one done with. The main part of the journey that they're aware of.
Yeah.
Or that they can remember in your usual conscious state. However, other things only came to light after they underwent hypnotic regression. There was more to the story than this.
Yeah, I mean, initially when they did get home, they realised that it had taken longer than they thought it had. I think it was like 3 hours longer than they thought it should have been. And Barney Betty wanted Barney to bring stuff into the house, and he had this strange idea that he didn't want to do it because he thought about radiation poisoning. For some reason that cropped into his head, so they left all the stuff outside. They wouldn't bring it into the house. They left it outside in the porchway at the back. Yeah. And that was when they started noticing, you know, like Betty, she had a dress was ripped. The binoculars that he had around his neck, the leather strap that fit around it, that had been snapped, and also the blue earrings that Betty was wearing. She couldn't find them. Another interesting story is a few days later they come in and found a pile of leaves on the table, as though somebody had come in, and when they went through the leaves, underneath it was Betty's earrings. But that's
the missing earring.
Yeah. But she got hold of a sister because on the car there was like little discs. Can you way of it describe it, like marks on it, disc-shaped marks around the car, which they had no idea how they'd got there. So she gave her sister a ring because her sister had a UFO sighting years previously, and her sister said, "Oh, you need to get a compass. If you get a compass and put it on, if there's a reaction, there's definitely something iffy going on." So to get a compass, much to the annoyance of Barney, who's pretty much had enough of it by this point. And she goes out and she puts it onto the disc, and the compass starts spinning around like crazy. And at that point, they decide that they'll put in a report to Pease Air Force Base. And the guy who they're speaking to there also sort of lets them into a little thing that they'd had a radar return that night around the same time. What was going on? So I mean, that was just the start of things from there. I mean,
the radar return showed two artifacts or two separate events, didn't it?
Yeah. One was 4 mile out that eventually came into about half a mile, and then the radar return started getting very faint, as though it just disappeared. But that was within about, was it 20 or 30 minutes? I think it was of the. It was that close that they actually put the reports of the hills and the military one onto the same card because the sighting was that close. I was going through my Blue Book files, and
I was going to say this was enough to be logged into Project Blue Book, wasn't it?
Yeah. So an awful lot was going on there, and then obviously Betty started looking into it more, and then got involved with NICAP, who sent an investigator out to work with them. Barney started becoming ill. He started having to go and see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist eventually, after all that time, suggested him to go and see another person who could deal with hypnosis, which might bring back some of his memories to help, and then the rest is history from that point.
Okay, so we've got some audio that we can play a little later of some of the, I won't say testimonies, but some of the things that Betty and Barney have said regarding certain elements of the abduction. But if we move into the second part now, we've had the beeps, we've reached it to the beeps where the conscious state has recognised that they've made it to a certain part. However, because of these events, after the fact, if you like, upon going home and Barney becoming ill and Betty's sister making the suggestion that there might be elements of magnetism, the thoughts of radiation or the worries and concerns of radiation, and then starting to talk to people about things that aren't being right. There's a second element to the story that we should probably go through if you're ready for that, Steve.
Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, so this is the second encounter that the Hills had with the UFO. This was the missing gap that had plagued their minds until 1964, when they went through a hypnosis session with Dr. Benjamin Simon to retrieve the lost memories. A lot of the details are hazy, confusing, and difficult to put into some kind of order, so I've drawn on as many different points of reference material. Betty's statements and diary entries, transcripts, audio from hypnosis sessions, Betty's appearance at conferences, various websites, and used Google Earth to piece together where I believe the couple's lost journey probably took them. Again, if this case is of interest, please look into it yourselves and find anything I've missed and let me know. And if you're stateside, you can actually follow the route physically, then I really am jealous.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so that's me being honest. Right, second encounter. Right, so if we look here, again, the map, this is a little bit closer up. If you remember, up here was the bend in the road where they initially saw the UFO hover just to the side of the field, and they went out to have a look. As I said before, the bend in the road, they'll stop to closely observe the UFO, then nipped off at great speed, which gives me a lot of sense, I believe. Then they had the rhythmic beeping sound with a deep vibration when everything went hazy and couldn't remember anything until a considerable part of the journey had been driven. It's at this point where things become difficult to plot a timeline or journey taken from everything put together, especially from the hypnosis session. This is where it all goes. So they'd driven a few miles before Barney realised he was no longer on Route 3 and was in an area unknown to him. And Betty vaguely remembered taking a left over a steel bridge, which, let me get rid of that thing there, which is here. We'll get a close-up now. So that's the bridge that they went over. And that's an actual photograph of it. Right. From there, in silence, they followed the road until they came to a sharp left turn that took them onto a narrow road. So that's where the bridge was. So they'd driven all the way down there until they got to this turning here, which sort of comes back on itself. So it really is a very sharp turn. Looking at the maps, this is the only place that fits the bill and also falls in with the distances later given and with the continuing journey home. There's a close-up of this turn. So if you can see down here, that's your sharp bend to the left, which takes them onto Tripoli Road. From the description, the sharp left turn described would have taken them onto Route 75 onto Tripoli Road. Now, Tripoli Road is a secluded road that connects Woodstock to the Waterloo Valley. From Waterloo, there's a better road, Route 49, that then reconnects with Route 175 and Interstate 93. The road can be dangerous during the winter months and usually closes the end of October to the end of April. I made my estimates on the next section because of the descriptions of how secluded the road was. Now you can see from this as a comparison, that is Tripoli Road, which is the one leading to Waterloo, and that's Route 49, which is coming away. You can see the road's a lot wider, it's got its markings on it, it's a hell of a lot, should we say, friendlier to sort of look at and probably easier to navigate at night as well. According to Walter M. Webb, the investigator for NICAP, National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena, he went with the Hills to attempt to find the second site. That's where the abduction is alleged to have taken place, and he said it was 15 miles from where they had their first encounter. If my assumptions are correct, then this would indeed place them close to Waterville Valley. So 15 miles from the first thing, that takes it all down there, come down, take the turn onto Tripoli Road. That brings us round 15 miles, then brings us into a bend into the road. This fits in with the description of approaching a bend where there was a roadblock and surrounded by high trees. Again, please remember that this was an unlit road in the middle of the night. So that's where they went. That's where they originally seen it in the bend. And that's where the second encounter took place. Now that is right onto the bend. So if you can imagine this in the middle of the night with the trees up at one side, absolutely minute size of a road, it's going to be very constrictive and very frightening with what appeared to have happened next. It was here that Barney and Betty encountered the occupants of the craft. Rounding the bend, they saw an orange glow in the woods and men ahead in the road. Barney thought there had been a car accident, and suddenly his car engine stopped and he couldn't restart it. Barney later remembered under hypnosis a mind voice telling him to relax and they wouldn't be harmed. 8 beings approached the car, 3 to Barney's side and 5 to Betty's. The mind voice told Barney to keep his eyes shut and he wouldn't be harmed. As he was being taken from the car, one of the beings felt the gun in his coat pocket and removed it, leaving it on the car seat. Betty was helped out of the car by one of the beings, and when she looked at it, she fell straight asleep. She awoke, walking up to the craft with 3 of the beings in front and 2 behind, and she saw her husband being supported by a being either side of him. He still had his eyes closed. Barney would later say he kept them closed because he was too afraid to look. Now, what happens next we'll be covering shortly because of the examinations or whatever which allegedly got taken place on board the craft. But once the examinations were complete, Barney and Betty were led from the ship and back to their car, being told to wait in the car till the ship had left. Barney then opened his eyes, already forgetting what had just happened, and was wondering why he was in the middle of a field. He then saw Betty coming towards him and wondered what she was also doing in a field. And when he got in the car, Barney sat down on the gun, which was on the seat, and he found the dog Delcy trembling under the seat. Betty got to the car. She was feeling both relieved and happy and asked Barney to watch the ship take off. Barney joined her outside the car and Betty picked up Delcy to comfort her. The ship began to glow, lifted off and shot off, becoming a small point of light in seconds. The couple both got in the car, which Barney was able to start, and the memory of the event was rapidly fading from both of them, passing through Waterville Valley and getting onto Route 49 and eventually back onto Route 3, where, as mentioned earlier, was the second set of beeps just outside of Ashland, and then the continuing journey home and the ensuing realisation of 3 hours of missing time and no recollection of the 35 miles between Indian Head and Ashland. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so it's the hypnotic regression which has obviously caused the biggest stir with them to start realizing that they'd been, abducted by different types of beings, as you alluded to before. Barney described them as almost wearing Nazi uniforms.
Yep.
In their appearance. But there were beings of different different types. Aboard the craft that were allegedly for different jobs, overseers, that kind of thing. But do you want to move on to the audio and then we'll come to the EBEs, or the abduction itself? What are you thinking?
Entirely up to you, mate. Honestly, no problem.
Okay, so we'll play a bit of the audio because I think that's it's a good a time as any to play some of that. So this is some of the things that Betty and Barney said about the abduction, and it's interesting. Obviously, it's old, so you'll have to forgive the quality of the audio. Try and find a way of playing it here. Think about StreamYard is it doesn't make it easy to do anything. Let's have a look. Okay, so we'll try this one. Hopefully that's come up on screen. Has it come up on screen? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll play the audio. Hopefully, I better make sure it's sharing audio. Sorry about this, everybody. I really wish there was a better way of doing this. These are taken how long after the event, though, Steve? What's this? 4 years after the event?
3 years.
3 years after the event. That the
Let me just 4 years. Yeah, 1965.
Yeah, 4 years after the event.
Yeah.
Okay, so this should share the audio now. Let's try this one.
I want to wake up. You're not going to wake up. You're in a deep sleep. You're comfortable, relaxed. This is not going to trouble you. Go on. You can remember everything now. It's right over my right. God, what is it? And I try to maintain control so Betty cannot tell I am scared. God, I'm scared. It's all right. You can go right on, experience it. It will not hurt you now. I got to get my gun. Forget it now. It's forgotten. Calm now. Relax.
Mm. Interesting. I take it the audio played. Hello? He's gone. Okay. So that was the first
Hello.
bit. Yeah. I take it the audio played.
Yeah, it certainly did, mate. I don't know what happened
Okay,
there.
cool. Obviously during that we can hear Barney being, he's very distressed, isn't he? It's an interesting bit of art. I've always been, I've not been sure how I feel about these audio clips from this particular event. But there is a lot of emotion in his voice there. It doesn't sound like it's put on, but we're not here for analysis. This is the second piece of Barney's audio. What's this one about, Steve? What are we referring to on this piece of audio?
It's when he sees them in the field when he's at Indian Head, you know, when it's pulled up and it's stopped in the middle of the road, basically.
Okay. So let's have a listen to this. So this is when he first sees the craft, or first sees the beans.
Well, he's pretty much both in it, because it's coming down towards him. He's looking through the binoculars through the window, so he gets a decent view of the craft and what he can see through the windows.
Okay, so let's have a listen to this then and see what this is. This sounds like. I mean, I've heard it a few times, and I'm sure you have. But
Just a minute. Let's go back a little bit now. You say it's there. Did you say it was 1,000 feet away?
Oh no,
1,000 yards?
it doesn't look that far. It's very big, and it's not that far. And I can see it tilted toward me.
Tilted? What does it look like now when you say tilted? Did you see wings?
Looks like a big pancake with windows and rows of windows and lights of not light, just one huge light.
And rows of windows like a commercial plane?
Rows of windows. They're not like a commercial plane because they curve around to the size of this pancake. And I say, my God, no. I have to shake my head. It can't be true. This isn't there.
interesting.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and audio clip number 3.
This is describing the different occupants that you can see.
Okay, so we'll come back to the this a little bit later, but I'll play this audio.
Yeah.
One person looks friendly. He's friendly looking, and he's looking at me over his right shoulder, and he's smiling.
Could you see him clearly?
Yes, I thought.
What's his face like? What does it make you think of?
It's round. I think of a red-haired Irishman. I don't know why, but I think I know why. Because Irish are usually hostile to Negroes, and when I see a friendly Irish person, I react to it by thinking I will be friendly. And
Again, an interesting piece of audio. Excerpts number 4.
that is describing his view of what he classes as the leader.
Yeah, as I said earlier, there was different, if you like, levels or types of EBEs that were aboard this craft and conducting all of this, which we'll come to later on.
Yep.
So this is Barney's description of the occupants, or the leader of the occupants.
Yeah, oh, that's what he perceived anyway, definitely.
I see this one that is looking over his shoulder is friendly.
You say looking over his shoulder. Was he facing away from you?
Yes, he was facing a wall. And
You saw him through this window, or you said there was a row of windows?
it was a row of windows, just a huge row of windows, only divided by struts or structures that prevented it from being one solid window, or then it would have been one solid window. And the evil face on he looks like a German Nazi.
He is not. Did he have on a uniform?
Yes,
What kind of uniform?
it was black. He had a black scarf around his neck, dangling over his left shoulder.
You pointed it out as if it were on you.
I never noticed that.
You had a black scarf on his neck. How did you see these figures so clearly at that distance?
I was looking at him with binoculars.
Oh. Mhm. Did they have faces like other people? You say one reminded you of a red-headed Irishman.
His eyes were slanted. I see it so. His eyes were slanted, but not like a Chinese.
Okay, another interesting bit of audio. Audio clip number 5 of Barney's.
This is describing the roadblock, which is obviously later on after the beeps when they are on a road, they have no idea where they are.
The eyes are there. Always the eyes are there. And they're telling me, I don't have to be afraid. Is there an accident down the road? What's the red? The bright red.
Bright red.
Yeah,
What is that?
orange and red.
Where is that?
Right down the road.
Down the road.
I don't have to be afraid. But they won't talk to me.
Who won't talk to you?
The men.
Okay, interesting that one. It's he described them as men. Okay, and we got 7. So number 6. This is the 6th one of Barney's hypnotic regression session
This
excerpt.
is a quick one describing part of the procedure that he allegedly went through on the ship.
Okay.
Were these men in the road? Or what part did they play in it?
They took me and carried me up this ramp.
Did you feel you were going to be operated on?
No,
Did you feel you were going to be attacked in any way?
no. I was laying on the table and my fly was open and I thought, are they putting a cup around my private parts? And then it stopped. And I thought, how funny.
Okay, number 7.
This is basically the end of the ordeal and what he's witnessed and what he felt at the end of it.
I opened my eyes and there is the car and the lights are off and it is not running and Dulcie is under the seat, and I reached under and touched her, and she is in a tight ball under the seat, and I sit back, and I see Betty is coming down the road, and she gets into the car, and I am grinning at her, and she is grinning back at me, and we both seem so elated, and we are really happy, and I'm thinking it isn't too bad. How funny. I have no reason to fear, and we look, and I see a bright moon, and I laugh and say, well, there it goes.
So at the end there, Barney describing the disappearance or the retreat of the craft. Okay, so there's a few of Betty's, not as many from Betty in this particular group, but this is obviously Betty's excerpts from what she had to say about it. And number one.
Okay.
Oh,
In
sorry.
the Indian Head area, I'm trying to attract the attention of this craft. I'm telling it, come on in. Hi. I got the window down. I'm yelling to her. Hi. Who are you? And at that point, it left the top of the mountain, came out over the highway and stopped in midair directly in front of us, maybe about 50 feet in the sky. So Barney got out with the binoculars in an attempt to identify the craft. And when he looked up, he saw a circular window with a bright light behind it, and he saw these men standing behind the window looking down at him. And at that point, the craft began to descend, and he became frightened, ran back to the car saying he thought they were trying to capture him.
Okay, slightly better audio there than the one for Barney. So Betty's excerpt number two.
This is where she's describing the roadblock.
Let's wait for this to load. It's only a short one. Let's play this.
And here were the group of men he'd seen on the craft standing in the middle of this road, blocking our way. And naturally, he had to stop the car. And they came up in two groups, took us out of the car, passed in the woods to where the craft was on the ground.
Okay, audio clip number three.
I had to put this one in. It's where she chins an alien.
So this is where Betty smacks an alien on the jaw or in the mouth or something.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's listen to this one.
Steven Seagal,
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, when we got up to the door, I was not going to go in. So I socked him.
You punched the entity.
Yeah. In fact, I put up such a battle that my dress is badly torn. And he said, come on. All we want to do is some simple tests. And as soon as the tests are over, we'll take you back to your car and you'll be on your way.
Fantastic. She mentioned an element that we'll go back to in a minute, the infamous dress.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This is clip number four.
This is describing the examination that was done to her. And there's some bits in this which were mentioned previously in books and stuff, but haven't been mentioned here, but we'll touch on them shortly.
Your examination, and again, all this comes out in later dreams and hypnosis, but immediately do they remove your clothes and perform what happens?
I was taken into this first room, and it was quite bare. There was a small table, there was a stool, and then the wall, there were doors in the wall that would slide back and forth. And they put me on a stool, checked my eyes, ears, nose, throat, my feet, my hands. And then he put me on a table, said they were going to check my nervous system. And they used some kind of equipment to do this. And then he tried to insert a needle-like instrument in my navel, which caused pain. So they stopped doing it. And Then the examiner left and went into the room where Barney was.
Interesting.
Definitely.
Okay, so there's the audio.
Can I just mention there was a bit which has been left out, which is one of the most famous parts of it, is that during Betty's examination, an examiner came in and started tugging at her teeth, and then walked out. And she said, "What's going on? What's happened?" She said, "They just want to know why your teeth stay in and Barney's came out." Because Barney was wearing false teeth, because during the army, he was close to a grenade going off and the shockwave destroyed his teeth. So he wore dentures ever since. So, of course, when they were doing the examination on Barney and his teeth came out, I was like, what's this? And they tried to see if Betty's was the same. Just thought I'd mention that, because I did notice at some point that somebody did mention about Barney's teeth being examined, but that's the story behind that.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's the that's obviously Barney's was the audio taken from some of the hypnotic regressive sessions that he had. Betty's was taken at a much later date, by the sound of that, and she's sort of recounting a little bit of what Barney's saying, sort of secondhand, if you like, as well as sort of elaborating upon what he said, but sort of recounting things he said to her, given what happened to him. So just I thought I did pick up on that, so that's interesting.
Yeah, the thing is that you've got to remember as well is that before they actually did the hypnotic sessions, was Betty went through pretty much not long after it happened, started getting bad dreams for about a week, I think it was, and she was telling Barney all about these dreams that she was having and what had happened, and this is what happened on the ship, this had happened here, this had happened there. So although you're leading up to the point where they are doing the hypnotic regression, and one of the arguments was a case of that, oh well, they went in there and it was only hypnotic regression that brought this out, you have to take into account that Barney previously had all this down his neck, because she was relentless telling him stuff that was going on. So you've got that little bit of confabulation going on there.
Yeah.
But so it works both ways in what you were saying and what she was saying. But the thing is, what you also got to look at, the two different ways of looking at it. You've got Barney, who was in abject terror of what he saw, and yet Betty looks at it as like some great big like little adventure, a little jaunt that she'd done, waving them down, which where she was going on like that was never in the initial stuff that she was going on. She was just like sat in the car and Barney was out there looking for stuff that was going on. So there's a lot there which, like I say, you have to take into account and say how much was added later on. As we know, dear old Betty, towards the end of her life, so to speak, was quite well known for just literally posting up a picture of, well, a black cat in a coal cellar and saying it was an alien. It's as simple as that. Okay,
well, let's. I got this one first. Which one should I show first? There's so many. That's sort of it, isn't it? I mean, there's been I wouldn't say called out, but there's been elements that have been called out. She's been out with other UFO enthusiasts and investigators over the years, and and we'll quickly show. Well, won't quickly show. There you go. There's the. Betty's dress that was torn during her boxing match with one of the aliens, because she didn't want to be taken aboard the craft. So she decides to pull a Mike Tyson or whatever you poison, starts scuffling with this EBE on the way into the craft and gets her dress torn. And there it is in all its glory.
Well, she put it away, didn't she, for a couple of years, and then went back to it, and there was like a pink residue on it.
Yeah.
And again, that was then put away. And then the late 90s, 2000s, I mean, I've got this written down somewhere. I think it's on one of the presentations for later on. But it was some company said, oh, we'll have a look at this. We're this like great analytical lab. We'll have a look at this and we'll tell you exactly what it was. And they started coming out with all this absolute hokum about if it was mixed with water, this residue, it'd create a greater electrical content within the water than anything else. And they were just waffling on about all this. And then somebody said, like, well, who is this analytics lab? And it was a little company that had been set up to analyse soil from crop circles. So like straight away, that went out the window.
Yeah, I did see that had been mentioned in the comments, that people were saying the dress had been analysed. And that's the story about the analysis, is that it was done by a group of people that were self-proclaimed analysts. You know, they weren't actually a forensic company in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, it was analysed, but it may as well have been analysed by people who work in a cafe or something like that. Really.
As somebody said, you know, when you look at perhaps the majority of crop circles that are done as a whim using a board and a lot of beer, then, you know, if anybody starts showing credence to any of the electrical properties that's supposed to be in it, you start having to worry at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, right. So should we look at the EBEs, or where do you want to go now, Steve?
No, I'm following your lead.
Okay, so let's have a look at the EBEs. Obviously, these have been described to a fair amount. I mean, we've got what the entities look like, and then of course we've got the map, the famous star map pointing to where Betty said these extraterrestrial entities were from, and of course I think there was a moment where she was given a book by one of the aliens, but it was taken off her by the leader. Much to her chagrin, you know, she would have obviously liked that as some kind, I wouldn't say a memento, maybe that's a little bit flippant, but obviously she was offered a book.
I can't remember if it was actually the leader that gave her the book, and then the others had sort of ganged up and said, "Whoa, you can't do this," and he had to take it back. I know one way or the other. Anyway, she was given something because she said she wanted to prove that this had actually happened. And he handed over this book and ended up taking it back. So probably some kind of weird galactic librarian or something. I don't know.
I think that's a fantastic synopsis of what might have been going on. So there was this artist renditions of these EBEs. So we'll put a couple of them up.
Yep.
Over this one's from Fuller for the. It's quite a famous book, isn't it?
The Interrupted Journey.
The Interrupted Journey. Yeah.
Or 2 hours lost on a flying saucer.
Yeah. We'll come to him later, but you know. Is self-proclaimed flying saucer humanoids,
which was nothing like any of the descriptions.
Yeah. That's a good. That does have to be pointed out, because it says they're drawn from a description by the Hills, as reported by John G. Fuller. Although that doesn't match. That's like one of the worst alien e-fits ever made in history. Really, that one, isn't it? But it's I always scoff at that one. They even come complete with bits of tape on the top of the heads. Look.
Yeah, that's all the rest of the skull on.
Yeah, that's to hold it's actually there so they can wear a wig. Stops the wig from blowing off in the wind.
You know what it reminds me of? You know, when the kids come home from school, you know, like when they do like an Easter card or something, and they've drawn something, it flops up because it's got a piece of sellotape on it. There's probably a message under that.
Fantastic. Okay, so move on to what the Hills actually were more likely to have seen, if they did indeed something, or a more accurate interpretation of. That's one of the more famous ones.
Yeah.
Now that almost looks like a baby.
I was going to say that. It looks like one of these kids that's like, you know, when they do those, like, not South Park, what is it? Family Guy type things. Yeah, that could become a meme overnight, that.
Quite easily. Yeah, okay. And there's a couple more. Let's have a look at a couple more, because that's what we're here for. This is a fairly good one. Good as in it's good, and it's also interesting. So I see 3 different types on this one.
Yeah. This is probably the more likely, if that's the correct word to use.
Now, this is one where they seem to be wearing uniforms as described by Barney.
Yeah.
Even the I mean, that one on the left looks like he's come straight out the Village People. To be fair, it's like some kind of futuristic. I don't even want to, like, blue oyster, Blue Oyster Clubs type of thing going on there. But, a more famous one. This one hasn't lasted as long as the others before it's descended into madness. A more well-known one, showing a different types of entities. Yeah, interesting that, actually. I think we've got 1 or 2 more. No, I'm not going to show that one yet. I'll come back to that one.
Is that the one we look at when everybody's gone?
Yeah, there you go. Secretive alien pictures. You know? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the more famous one, that, isn't it?
Yeah. face made for radio.
And it sort of looked like a Mother Teresa look over the head.
Yeah, a face only mother can love, really, I suppose. But
Yeah.
so they're sort of like, yeah, they're sort of like the types of beings that Betty and Barney Hill have described or claim that they've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it looks like to me.
But
okay.
As they said, not once was it like, did they mention like alien? They always said people or men.
That is true. That is true. And well pointed out, he does refer to that. Barney, on the audio clips that we were listening to, he was saying people or men. He didn't say aliens. Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the cracking pictures. That like some of what's dropped straight out of the 1930s, 40s Astounding Stories pulp magazine. That.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're almost 2000 AD Mekon-esque.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at anything which is described to be a grey alien, whether it be from Whitley Strieber or anything like that, they're either classed as like it's a very tight-fitting grey suit over the top of the skin, or it's just their skin. You never hear of a grey alien turning up with like, some form of like suit on or uniform or anything.
Mm-hmm. That is very, very true indeed. Okay, have we got any more? The alien roll call.
What's it? The usual suspects, alien division.
Yeah, well, I'll show this one. This is an interesting one, which it purports to show Betty. Betty purports to show Betty. There's Frank Spencer there for a minute. A little bit of Betty. There we go. It's pretty much referring to,
it looks like the Last Supper.
Yeah. Like a very cannibalistic Last Supper.
Yeah. And I'm worried about how he's got his hand where it is.
Yeah, he's after a prime bit of rump with that one. So there's that could obviously it's a good interpretation of what went on, I suppose. And any female being abducted by the legendary Greys, proportionally rather look a little tall for what are regularly reported to be Grey's height, going off the size of the female on the table, but all in all, a fairly good pick. Yeah, it's a representation. Picture. It's certainly, whether you would sort of tie it into like the Hill documentation, I don't know. It just looks like that's the one. But allegedly, purportedly showing a picture related to the Hills. It's what's in it really? It comes down to how you put your food on the table. I mean, Barney said that he had a cup placed around wherever he was. It looks like they've got a dish for her. Oh, absolutely. There's a dish right there. Okay, so it's a bit of a rundown of some of the EBEs, or at least what the EBEs might have looked like. Okay, so we've seen the dress, damage to the dress, because our Betty's a little bit of a feisty one. Where we get a load of meat. Yeah, definitely a feisty one. On top of which, we've had a look at a couple of the aliens. We've listened to some of the audio that from Barney's hypnotic regression sessions and some of the statements that Betty made later on in life. Really, I suppose now's as good a time as any to, should we? There's a lot. The only thing is, there's always so much to go through. Should we go to the maps? Do you think the maps are worth mentioning? I think the maps are worth mentioning, don't you? Go on then. You lead the way with this one. Yeah, let's we'll go with the maps, because this is always interesting. Now, the whole idea of the maps is that she'd been shown a map, hadn't she, Betty? Yeah, it was like a roll down image that was like a solid hologram or something. When they put it down, it was like a projection screen, not like a hologram as we know it, where we'd sort of look around. No. And it was just like on the screen where it's like more of a 2D, 3D projection, I suppose you would say. Yeah. Now she's been fairly vocal about this map. But the sort of propagation of the looking more into the map was done by a lady called Marjorie Fisher. Marjorie Fish. Yeah. Now she was a school teacher
Yeah.
and an amateur astronomer. All this information's easy to get on the internet. It's even there on Wikipedia should you want it. And she'd read the book, our mate's book. You know, she'd read The Interrupted Journey with the pictures of the strange aliens that don't bear any resemblance to what the Hill said, but we won't go into that. And she read this in 1968, and because of this sort of like, it sort of like piqued her interest to want to start to try and analyze the star maps. I'll put up picture of the star maps in a second. In fact, I'll do that now. There's never a time like now. So let's put up some of the pictures
with this on, haven't you?
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like it's flowing this tonight. This is one of our better ones. This, people, can you tell? Absolutely, absolutely all over this. No idea whatsoever.
Professional with a capital S.
Yeah, this one's been a bit of a weird one, but there you go. Okay, so we're scribbling.
It's a lightsaber gone wrong.
Yeah, it looks like something else, but I'm not going to go into what that is. But it's,
I didn't want to say that.
It looks like a sex toy stroke pepper pot. Like, it's something like that. There's other images of the front of the map. Okay, I'll show. We'll go back. This one's probably a little bit more. That's wonderful, isn't it? Really? Okay, there you go. So
yeah,
this is the area where Betty's claimed that the EBEs have come from the Zeta Reticuli system, Zeta Reticuli, however you want to call it. Tomatoes, potatoes kind of thing rocking there.
That was clever, that.
Thanks very much, mate.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, like I say, our mate Marjorie, had decided to pursue finding out about this star map.
Well, in these days, with what's it wonder, you get a computer program and mess around with it and do it. But she used, was it coloured beads and fishing wires to put it all together?
Yeah. She built like a 3D kind of model of it, didn't she?
Yeah.
And she'd sort of like come to the conclusion that like of the 15 of the stars contained within the map, that one of them has to be at least a little bit like the sun, our sun. And like you say, she made a 3D model of it, and she tried to find one that might have the same kind of be similar enough to the sun to be able to sustain life around with the solar system that was around the sun, that particular star rather. And she's like studied multitude of different viewpoints using the model and using the Gliese star catalogue of 1969. And she's saying that the only one that matched the map that the Hills put forward was from the viewpoint of a double star system called Zeta Reticuli. Okay, that's 39.3 light years from Earth, which is a binary star system. And they share the same rotary motion in space, so they're gravitationally bound to one another, but far enough apart to appear as two separate stars. When there's excellent viewing conditions and you can see them with the naked eye, which we're not going to in the UK because where they're positioned, we don't get to see them. But the distance between the two is 3,700 astronomical units for those of you that are taking notes, making their orbital period 170,000 years. So they share very similar characteristics to the sun and are considered solar analogues because of that. Zeta 1 has 96% of the sun's mass and 84% of the sun's radius. And Zeta 2 is slightly larger and more luminous than Zeta 1, with 99% of the sun's mass and 88% of the sun's radius. So 39.3 light years, or, for anybody who's interested, approximately 231 trillion, 84 billion, 127 million miles away. So you wouldn't want to walk there. So
Perhaps
there's the Zeta.
You'd certainly be changing your trainers every so often anyway.
Yeah, you'd be going through some treads doing that one, wouldn't you?
Definitely.
That's a fair crack out. But, so like I say, the star map, that's where the EBEs are from. That's where the crafters come from. That's part of this abduction.
I do mention this later on, but like the old saying. I mean, I think Douglas Adams said it in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where he said if you get an infinite number of monkeys with an infinite number of typewriters, somewhere along the line you're going to get a revision of Hamlet. And it's pretty much the same with that. If me or you tomorrow got a piece of black paper and then got a piece of some white paint and did dots, big ones, small ones, all over the place on it, and went, you know what? There's a star map. If you had a piece of software, or you had access to, you know, like the NASA or Hubble stuff, where you could look at all the different star systems throughout all the different galaxies, our galaxy or whatever, at some point you're going to find many different versions of it. Whether it be you have to turn it upside down, sideways, whatever, but you will find them, and it's as simple as that. If you look on that, the amount of points of light which are on there, it's negligible compared to the size of, you know, the galaxy. You will find that wherever.
Yeah, absolutely. You've also got this is based upon the 3D model she put together, though, using Gliese star map from 1969, isn't it? And that's why she's come with the Zeta Reticular star system, like the binary star system that we're looking at there. And that is a fair point. I mean, how she's judged the stars that are similar or having similar characteristics to the sun. You can argue that she's chosen them to fit a certain narrative, because any others don't make sense, rather than this is it because it's an absolute. It's a case of it must be these ones because all the rest don't make any sense. But that's not necessarily meaning that it adds any credence to the claims, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It certainly is, but you know, it's one of those, isn't it, that, you know, the more you look at it, the more you've got to start taking sort of things and making sense of it. I mean, I remember many years ago, like I say, as a kid, when I was following the story of the hill, and it came out, and it was like, you know, oh, somebody's come forward and said, you know, that this is an actual hill map of the stars.
Yeah.
The hell, it was like, oh my God, it's proof of life in the universe. I mean, God, there's got to be life in the universe anyway, but you know, it was basically sort of backing up everything. So as a kid, you know, you sort of go through it and go, fantastic. But, you know, the more older you get and the more you look into it, you sort of have to put the brakes on a bit and go, whoa, hang on a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, 39.3 light years, give or take a few feet.
Yeah, well, so, you know, what's that amongst friends?
Well, what's a few feet amongst friends? Eh? So 231 trillion, 84 billion, 127 million miles.
And
that's a fair crack. that's a fair old crack. Okay, so that's the star map. I mean, you know, it's it wasn't really grounded in any kind of professionalism. I mean, by the very definition of her own claims as to what she was, an amateur astronomer.
You know the sad thing about all of it was that you know, you've got to come forward, and she's done this and this, that, and the other. But wouldn't it have still been more interesting if nobody would have come forward with a star field to say either it existed or it didn't, and we were still left with that? Well, it's like Schrodinger's cat, in it. Is it or isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've also got to remember that as far as the greys are concerned, greys are Zeta Reticulans in the eyes. That's the fashionable explanation for what greys are, and nearly every abduction case concerning greys, the greys have said that they're from Zeta Reticuli. Only after this, you know, it's sort of like this is in a way what's sort of set in concrete. The explanation for whereabouts in the universe the greys have come from is this case that's sort of been founded, not been founded, but sort of given any level of credence by.
It's labelled it really,
a school teacher, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I find interesting now. It's like, you know, Jasper Carrott used to say years ago, you know, like about Americans who came over to England. Can you imagine somebody getting kidnapped now by grey aliens? And they sort of go in and go, "Oh, you're from Zeta Reticuli. Do you know Mrs. Smith?"
Yeah, there you go. You must know. Do you know a guy called John? Like, oh yeah, John. Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
But it's just such a shame, you know. If you're going to do something, do it right. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I would have rather been left in the dark and not constantly saying, well, if nobody's found it, nobody can say yay or nay. It's as simple as that.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. However, that map was made by a school teacher.
Go on, say that again.
Not by any. Well, you know, I mean, I don't know what she taught. I mean, does anybody, if anybody in the chat does, or if you do, Steve, what Marjorie Fisher, Miss Fish?
Let me have a look through the notes.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if Marjorie,
if it's what religious sciences.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what Miss Fish was actually a teacher of. But had any kind of bearing upon what she knows about astronomy. Granted, you know, I think that's a little bit. It's a little bit flippant to make that claim, but I'd be interested to see if she was a teacher of the sciences or anything like that.
All I've got in my notes here is that she's an elementary school teacher.
Right, elementary school. Okay, so unlikely to be a science teacher then for the most part.
Not really. No, it's going to be one of these like, and here's a carrot. It's orange. Aha.
Okay, she was an expert in identifying vegetables. Yeah. So we can take her map with a pinch of pepper. Okay. Right. So the map. We've looked at the map. We've looked at the dress. We've looked at the aliens, and we've listened to some audio. And then the story starts to come out, doesn't it? You know, it's beyond just the hypnotic regression. They start to become more vocal about what went on.
I think it was more of a case that they were forced into that because
I agree with that.
It's somebody they trusted with some of the stories.
Yeah,
he actually sort of then put. I can't remember, was it something like the Boston Traveller or something like that, the newspaper, and then everyone got onto it. So basically, they had to sort of answer to what was going on. So I don't think they actually wanted to come out and do it, because you think of it, when the case actually happened, they only spoke to close family and friends, and of course they put a report into NICAP and to the Air Force, and then that was left. And it was only because of Barney's continuing illness that they actually ended up doing the hypnotic regressions. And even then they didn't go around telling people what was going on. It was only when that guy actually put something into the newspapers that that something was actually said, that they had to come out and say, well, yeah, this actually did happen. So they were forced into that, I think. Otherwise, I think if he had never come out and said anything, I think it would have been one of them things that when they died, perhaps one of the kids or grandkids would have come out and said, you know what? My auntie, my uncle, my grandma, my granddad told me about them being kidnapped by UFOs. Because, I mean, to be honest, you think of it, right? Like we said earlier on, they were a mixed race couple, which at the time it was like, ooh, you know, it was big trouble in the States. I mean, they were lucky where they lived in New Hampshire. That was probably one of the most liberal states where stuff like that sort of went on, and nobody really batted an eyelid. So really, they wanted to keep under the radar. So for him to actually come out with something like that, and for it to be as big as it became, I think that was so totally out of character for him, and I do believe they were forced into it.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. However, any kind of interviews or anything wrote by Betty after the event, because she survived Barney by a good few years.
Yeah, he died in '69. She died.
Just
'99 or something, was it?
I think it was it '94, 2004, right. Something like that. She was always very, very forward about it, to the extent of elaborating and embellishing a lot of what went on. And a part of me thinks that, you know, without wanting to judge or assassinate anybody's character, that because she would do that after the event, that had it not come out, she'd have spoken about it anyway.
Maybe,
I think. You know, like over the garden fence, speaking to the neighbour, pushing up the boobs. You know, I mean, ooh, Betty. You know, I mean, the audio of Barney going through hypnotic regression. He's very emotional. He does believe that what was happening to him was happening to him. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. He does sound convincing. And we can only speculate as to how effective the hypnosis was and how deeply under he was at the time when he was going through that emotional outburst, describing the event.
But I do think, though, that we have to look at things in an objective way, in the fact that up until the point of that being released, that guy coming out and giving the story, and then they had to do it, if that not had come away straight away, we can't say whether that would have happened or not, because they were quite happy just to get on with life. Obviously, they were puzzled about what was going on. They were upset what had happened. They had no idea. But up until that point, they'd said nothing to anybody about it, unless it was close friends. And even when they spoke to like the NICAP investigators, they said, look, we don't mind you cataloguing this. We don't mind you putting it down on the database, but please don't tell people about it, which they didn't.
Okay, well, I have got a counter to that, which I'll come to in a second. Nice to see Dulcie there, by the way, in the picture. Good to see the old doggy.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Nice to see that there. That Dulcie's okay. Yep, I and again, I understand what he's saying. However, I think there were other reasons for wanting not to draw attention to themselves, and that was due to the period in the political history, race history of what was going on in the States as well. Even though when Betty was questioned upon that, she said that the family and close friends were always very supportive about that kind of thing, and the people in the local community. Barney himself, when he's going through an optic regression, is making sweeping comments about, in a discriminatory way, to Irish people. So there is there is a creed and race kind of thing going on there. I mean, obviously the man must have been subjected to all kinds of things, and the times were changing. There was a lot going on at the time, so I think there were other external pressures, peer pressures, social pressures, political pressures that made them not necessarily want to draw attention to themselves, let alone the fact that they're making claims that have been abducted by aliens. I just think I think it would have come out. I think it would have come out anyway. I mean, for how many times throughout ufology and UFO law have people that have experienced alien abductions, whether they've had hypnotherapy or not, it's started to come to the surface now, whether they found objects embedded in the skin, and you know this only too well, or suppressed memories. It started to come out over a period of time anyway, even without hypnosis, which is in many cases made them, I mean, Bud Hopkins was at the forefront of this, made them want to find out more information because they start to see it or experiencing it in a dream state.
But the interesting thing about this case, though, is the fact that it was two people. Normally what you would find in abduction cases, it's usually one. It's not often that you get two or more people. It's usually one person that it's happening to. And with Betty and Barney Hill, they were both involved in this together. I mean, I understand what you were saying about not wanting to draw attention to stuff, but they could have very easily done that, because I mean, Barney and Betty were asked to go to the Lyndon B. Johnson inauguration because of the work that he'd done in regards of the anti-racist stuff over the years, and he was invited to that. So straight away they could be in the limelight for that and say, oh, and by the way, which they didn't. Again, like I say, and as we were discussing earlier on, the thing is, we were never there. We can only take in face value what's been said, what's happened, and this, that, and the other. But it is a double case where you've got two people, and it was the first one ever. I mean, you think of the cases before that, what probably came along with the guy. Was it in Brazil where he'd been taken on board a spaceship and ended up bonking somebody from another planet?
Villas-Boas.
Villas-Boas, yeah.
Villas-Boas,
came along. It was always singular cases. So it's difficult. It really is difficult, because we have to look at this in so many different ways. Like I say, you got the fact that they were an interracial couple, which made that different because of the way people sort of seen them and everything that they'd been through, traumatic experiences, especially for Barney over the years. We can't sort of step in their shoes. But what we can say is that, we can look at what they've told us and we can say, well, look, this is a possibility. This sounds a little bit pony. And we can nitpick and say that there's bits of it which may be a possibility. There's other bits where we can say, well, you know what, perhaps this not so much, this can be done. But whatever way you look at it, you're left with the fact that something went on that we're not entirely sure about.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, but that's the same with everything.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, is that there is no buts. All it is something we can't explain, and that is all.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no proof beyond a ripped dress and a couple of drawings, and that's all there is.
And that was my argument with a fellow, well, I don't say a fellow ufologist, paranormal investigator, that's all we ever do. I'm not even going into that. But the thing is after Barney passed away, Betty become more vocal, which goes against what Barney would have wanted. Yeah, but can we look at stuff in retrospect and say that negates everything previously?
Absolutely, I think we should.
I think that's wrong. I do.
I think we should, because all we've got is we've got testimony, somebody saying that such and such a thing happened, and that's it. It's like, if there is a prosaic explanation, which we'll come to in a minute, if there's a prosaic explanation for anything or any kind of phenomena, then, you know, just to say, well, it can't be that, it has to be the outlandish one that I'm coming to, is also just as wrong. Yeah, so when it comes to making any kind of diagnosis or any kind of like drawing a line under anything, every single case has to be labeled as don't know. Well, because that's where it leads us, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's where we end up with it.
That's what I was saying to you early on. We have to look at things in a scientific point of view, where we look at things and say, is it this? Is it that? Is it the other? Whatever. And that's how it should be done. And whatever's left, it's like, you know, the old Sherlock Holmes type thing, in it. Whatever's left is probably the true answer. And that's how we can do.
Scientifically and psychologically, the way that Betty acted then, by your own, by the constraints of what you're putting forward, then suggest that it goes against the wishes of what Barney would have wanted, or somebody who was under a lot of distress. I mean, she was almost hallucinating at one stage, or just imagining every little thing that she saw as being a UFO, even if it was street lights, you know.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier, that, you know, she was posting, pictures of like black cats in black cellars, and it was an alien. And, you know, that does take away everything that, you know, went on before. But you can't look at everything and then dismiss it. You've got to still take elements from it and say, you know, well, look at this and see what's going on. I mean, you know, could you know, the fact that Betty sort of believed in things which weren't there have shown up on a radar track. You know, these little things like that.
But what showed up on a radar track was explained away as being the good old-fashioned weather balloons.
Well, you know, that's a bit nonsensical. They said it was a weather balloon, then they turned that around and said, well, actually, it wasn't. It was a weather inversion. Then they went, actually, no, it's not. We're not too sure what it is, but we're probably sticking with the inversion story anyway. Yeah,
because it's one that'll suit this particular narrative and get us off the hook.
Yeah, that's it. But it wasn't that the same with most of everything with Blue Book and the Air Force? If we could get away with something, that they'd do it. And you look through many of the famous cases through the time, which were sort of passed off, and they said, like, you know, if you look at it, you could say it's inconclusive, which would therefore lead to a case of, oh, well, if it's inconclusive, then there's a possibility that it's an unknown. But they'll come out with the primal thing of, yeah, it's a weather balloon. Yeah, it's Venus. Yeah, it's a temperature inversion. You know, there's only so many times you can get away with that.
Right. Okay. So Barney, who is pretty much, we hear what he says under hypnotic regression, who doesn't refer to anything as being alien. He doesn't refer to anything as being a UFO. He's the one who leads pretty much what's being seen. As far as the hypnotic regression goes, Betty's accounts of what goes on almost sounds secondhand. Yeah. Okay, he refers to the alien occupants as people.
Yeah.
Okay, he's also a war veteran who had his, you know, problems with his jaw, so he suffered a head injury during warfare, and that gets ignored. The fact that this man has suffered a head injury.
Well, this is it, isn't it? If we look through what we've gone on since, we would actually put this down to post-traumatic stress disorder. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, so there's lots of things scientifically and prosaically that can explain what went on, but that has to be cast aside, and most people would rather go with, I don't know.
No, you don't have to cast it aside. All I'm saying is that you have to look at some of the evidence and say there's some things which are explainable, and you can't just sort of say, oh, well, because everything else that's happened, is you throw that away.
I think that when you take it all on board, and you have to take on board the elements that go against it as well, which side weighs heavier? And given what they've put forward, and this is, you know, again, this is just me, the burden of proof doesn't lie with me, as I've said with you before. It doesn't lie with anybody but the people that make the claims.
Exactly, and what we're left with is that both
and
people are died, and we can't do anything.
That they can't prove what happened to them.
We certainly can't anymore.
So, and they couldn't back then. So it's one of them. Okay, so where do you want to go with this one now, Steve? What have we got next?
I have no idea. Where do you want to go?
Where should we go with it? I mean, we've got there's various explanations that were given for it. I suppose we can fly into that one if you fancy. Various explanations as to what people were saying.
Yeah, let me just bring this up. Just 1 second, mate. Here we go. Let me just bring it up on screen. All right. Okay, so we got that.
I'm going to put it up right now for you, brother. There you go. Explanations. Let's go, Steve.
Rock-a-doodle-doo. Right, here we go. Explanations. Misinterpretation is a common phenomena. It's been said that the Hills saw the moon or Jupiter, and that what gave them the impression of an object following them, and the abduction was a shared hallucination brought on by tiredness and what they thought they were seeing. Although the fact that they saw the object traverse the face of the moon and could see Jupiter just below the moon, it was unlikely they could mistake either for the object. It was also put forward that the glowing orb they saw was stopped them in the road was in fact the moon setting, although it's been shown that the moon set earlier that night than the time the incident happened. Cannon mounting. Some skeptics have said that when they approached Franconia, noticed that what we're seeing in the sky was either lights from the restaurant on top of the mountain, which was more than likely closed, or the beacon. Oh, bloody hell, where's that gone? Just 1 second, mate. Sorry about that.
There's the cable car on Cannon Mountain.
Yeah, that's the cable car, which they reckon that was what Barney had seen and mistaken for the people in the window, even though that would have shut about 5 o'clock, which was a good 6-7 hours earlier. I don't know why that's not going, because it should be showing the restaurant and that. Anyway, let's get back to that. Sorry about that. I don't know what's happened there. Yeah, and there's a beacon on top of the it's like a lookout tower up there, and that beacon shines lights up into the sky, which was one of the things that the Blue Book and the Air Force said could have been the case, that this light, which was shining up, then became part of the inversion process, which people then saw as a UFO. They also said that it could have been disappearing and appearing when the route placed trees or mountains between them. Also said that the object that Barney observed with figures in the window was a nearby aerial tram, which is obviously that there. And from what I found out, the cable car won't be operating beyond 5 o'clock.
Okay, now there's a local resident in the area that was called Jim McDonald. He's claimed that he's looked into the route that the Hills took as well on the night of the abduction. And he's sort of been like, or was quite vocal about the aircraft warning beacon on Cannon Mountain being responsible, because like you say, it would disappear in and out of sight as they traversed along the journey going through the valley, and that, you know, it come in and out of sight as they passed all these peaks. You know, you got Old Man, you got Indian Head, and you obviously got Cannon Mountain. And he's saying that as that came in and out of view, that was responsible for them seeing a light that was coming in and out of view. Yeah, and like I say, you know, we're only here to present the facts. It's as simple as that. I don't know, you don't know, whatever. There's a possibility that it was. There's also a possibility it wasn't. Go on.
Okay, so let's go to the TV, sci-fi, and aliens bit. It was the Hill encounter that gave us descriptions of modern-day grey aliens, allegedly. This is controversial in itself, as Betty originally said the aliens look human with large Jimmy Durante noses, yet Barney saw the creatures as small grey beings. It was only after hearing Barney's regression tapes that Betty changed her description and never mentioned the beings with big noses again. It's been put forward that Barney had possibly seen an episode of The Twilight Zone called The Bolero Shield, excuse me, that had recently been shown, which depicted a grey alien type. But if we're going down the road of televisual influence, we should also add that the Outer Limits TV show had put a grey alien type creature 2 years previously in an episode called Hocus Pocus and Frisbee. It should also be mentioned that H.G. Wells envisioned in 1983 an article called Man of the Year Million, that humans would transform into 1 metre tall grey-skinned beings with large heads and large black oval eyes. Also, Wells' 1901 book, First Man in the Moon, described the Selenites in a similar way to grey aliens. It's also worth noting that the image of the greys is not a modern thing. If you look at the ancient Aboriginal cave paintings of the Wandjina, it's quite a stunning visualisation of what abductees are reported as their abductors. Blue Book. Blue Book had 2 reports on the same night in the same vicinity, only 30 to 40 minutes apart. One was from the hills, the other from a radar station in Lincoln, New Hampshire, that tracked the object for 18 minutes. What isn't common knowledge that the observers saw this object on the precision approach radar at 4 miles out and it's closed in, only to then stop half a mile away. Shortly after that, the radar picked up a weak radar return, which was soon lost. Although we can't say there's a definite relationship between the events, the time and distance has a whiff of a possibility. Blue Book said the conditions were right for both visual and radar sightings to be caused by an inversion. The visual source of light that was mistaken was unknown, probably an advertising searchlight, but it's strange that they never picked up on the Mount Cannon lookout beacon. And the radar had picked up a ground target due to the strong inversion, which is a coincidence. There's no evidence to suggest that the objects witnessed were due to nothing more than natural causes. The optical condition, later changed to inversion, later changed to insufficient data, all crossed out and written in longhand on the original card of aircraft, balloons, airships, etc. There's the original sighting on the 20th. Observer, Hill and military, and both saying insufficient data. And there's the card, which they did up for both of them. It's not very well. I mean, the Blue Book stuff that I've got is quite old, and unfortunately some of it's not legible, but it's basically saying that there's a ground visual and air intercept radar which was seen by it.
Okay, the first one out of the 2, just put it up for another couple of seconds so the people in chat can see it. Not that one, the one before it, if you can.
That one?
Yeah, that's the one. Like, just so the people can see this and have a little bit of a read of the relevance of it. That's fantastic. And the next one again, just for a little while, please, Steve.
Just for notice, though, you know, like you were saying before about the weather balloon, that was actually on the day before in North Concord, which is in the same vicinity as that. So, yeah. Okay, so let me just bring that other one back up. Like I say, that's the record card, and because they were both so close together, they put both sightings onto the same card.
Yeah.
Okay. If you stuck with this so far, I'm going to think I'm onto a different one here. Let me just think. Yeah, this is a different story, so we'll come back to that shortly. There you go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, again, evidence of not knowing what's going on, which is always a good thing. I do want to put this up, actually, because you'll have seen this, and I think near enough everybody in chat, or a good chunk of them, will have already been looking all over Wikipedia and Google and seen.
Don't trust Wikipedia.
Seen this anyway. Well, this is it. You know, that's the thing, isn't it, with Wikipedia? Anybody can add to it.
Yeah, I might start doing that, putting some nonsensical stuff on. See if it comes.
Oh, I do that all the time. There we go.
It's Grace Jones.
It's beautiful. Slave to the rhythm, baby.
Same to the given.
There you go. So that's a nice looking dude there.
I'm not sure, but didn't Marjorie Fish present something like that to Stanton T. Friedman?
I think you might be right about that. Yeah, it is from Project Blue, but we've got Paranormal Chapel in the chat there. I have noticed all of you in the chat, by the way. Everybody, I'll give a list of names out and thank yous and all that lot later on. I have seen you all.
We've not been ignored. We've just been busy.
We've not been ignoring you. I know that it's sometimes come up that we don't respond to what's going on in the chat, but that's just to get through all the madness we're already doing. But you have been seeing everybody that's there, so thanks very much. Nub's prom date. Okay, so I can see he's in there. I've seen you making comments as well, Brandon, so don't think you've been ignored. I've seen what you're writing. So where are we at with the story now at the minute, Steve?
Well, I was going to go back through, the explanations, because there's some theories there which we could go through, but if not, we can just go through some of the people.
No, let's go. Let's do that. Let's go with some of the explanations. Let's rock that scene.
Okay, let me just bring that back up then.
Go for it.
Stuff that I added on later, because I said to you, it's been mad this week, so I've just not had time to do everything.
Yeah, I've been all over the place. I've forgotten how to do YouTube, as everybody's no doubt going to remind me later on. I've been very conspicuous with my absence. So this is probably going to be the most all over the place type one that we've done, but it's probably the best. Tell me when you're ready, brother.
Yeah, well, let me just get back to it. Sorry about this.
No, you don't. You're right.
Right. If you stuck with this so far, well done. Give yourself a big blue star. It's as simple as that.
Blue?
Well, yeah. It's like a blue.
Why not gold? Why not a gold star?
Because gold star makes it sound very pretentious, and I think if you do it along the lines of Blue Peter, then we're all right.
Right. If you stuck with us this far, give yourself a blue star.
Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of details to this story that I hope we've covered or can answer later in your questions, hint, hint. But I think it's important if we're to establish a clear picture of just what happened to Betty and Barney Hill on the 19th to 20th of September 1961 and afterwards. So with that in mind, I think it boils down to just 4 theories. Betty and Barney Hill were demented loons who hallucinated the whole thing. Or Betty and Barney Hill were cynical manipulators who invented the abduction story to make money out of the UFO craze. Or Betty and Barney Hill were abducted by aliens, or something odd happened to the Hills in September 61, but with hypnosis results which may have been misleading and Betty's later uncritical belief in UFOs and extraterrestrials. Let's see about each one. Theory 1. Betty and Barney Hill were lunatic fanaticists who imagined hallucinating the whole thing.
Shit. Sorry.
I'm
sorry, I was just clicking on the chat and I've ended up timing somebody out. Apologies for that. I've ended up timing somebody out. Sorry, Michael. Go on, Steve.
You're meant to do that.
No, I wouldn't do that.
This is difficult, if not impossible, to disprove. However, evidence shows that in 1961, both Betty and Barney were well respected both in their community and their workplaces. There's no hint or suspicion that either Barney or Betty were prone to fantasy or hallucination, or that either took drugs or suffered from any form of mental illness. In fact, Betty's job as a social worker would require her to make important, consistent and reliable judgments about cases. There's no evidence at all to show that her employers had any doubts about her ability to do this, and Betty was actually promoted to a supervisory role in 1962. Barney's work in the civil rights movement was well respected, and he was elected to a role on an important National Civil Rights Council and was even invited to the inauguration of Lyndon Johnson in 1963 just to give credence to his renown in this New England community. Given Betty's later predilection for seeing UFOs wherever she went, it became tempting to project this back to the Betty of 61 and see her as someone who was predisposed to see UFOs and to believe in extraterrestrials and to attribute the sighting to this. Evidence strongly suggests that Betty's fascination or eventual obsession regarding UFOs was born in the years following her encounter and not before. Theory 2. Betty and Barney Hill were cynical manipulators who invented the abduction story to make money out of the UFO craze. In the 50s and 60s, UFOs were big news. Many people had made a quick buck selling the story to the newspapers or a TV show spot. There's no evidence and certainly no clear motivation for the Hills to do this. Both were working full time and they lived a comfortable life, so it certainly seemed they were not short on money. I don't think they wanted fame either. They didn't publicise what happened to them until it was 1965, which was 4 years later. When the incident happened, they only told family and close friends and also sent a report to the Air Force and NICAP. They were obviously frightened and puzzled, and more so after the hypnosis sessions, where again, they only told the outcome of these sessions to family, friends, and a few UFO researchers who had been involved with them. If they had invented the abduction incident in September 61 to make them rich or famous, it doesn't make any sense they would make no attempt to publicise it until this was forced upon them 4 years later. Theory 3. Betty and Barney Hill were abducted by aliens. This is difficult to accept, but let's look at the so-called 3 areas of proof. Under hypnosis, Betty and Barney separately gave accounts of their abduction experience, which is so similar they must refer to a real event. Unfortunately, this isn't the case. Betty had started having vivid dreams a few days after the incident and told Barney the content. Dr. Simon even said that Barney's recollection were based on Betty's dreams, and Simon believed that they'd see something but has no idea what. The star map which Betty drew showed a conjunction of stars would only be visible to an observer in a distant part of the galaxy. Not convincing. Even with the work done by Margie Fish, who constructed a 3D model using coloured beads and fishing line, if you drew varying dots on a piece of paper, then looked at it enough, through enough star charts, you would eventually find one with similar patterns and sizes. That the anomalous biological material found on Betty's dress can not have a terrestrial origin. Well, 2 years after the incident, Betty said her dress had a pink residue on it. In the late 1990s, early 2000s, a laboratory analysed it and concluded that the stained portion of Betty's dress would induce a higher degree of energy in the water than the unstained ones. Fantastic! Except the laboratory, Pinelandia Biophysics Laboratory, their main function was a crop circle analysis lab. Well, you can imagine no one has taken the findings from that seriously.
I like the Freudian slip there where you said a crap circle analysis. That was,
sorry. I totally apologise for that.
Yeah.
Theory 34, something had happened to the Hills in September 61, but with hypnosis results which may have been misleading, and Betty's later uncritical belief in UFOs and extraterrestrials. There's no doubt that Barney in particular, as he looked through the object through binoculars, saw something very strange. something so odd that it caused him to become almost hysterical, and the years that followed to develop many of the symptoms that we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. Taken at face value, his sighting sounds more than a little stupid. A huge craft hovering silently with windows and able to see the occupants hurrying about, wings that slid out of the UFO with red lights on the tips, a crew dressed in shiny black suits and caps, and one of them smiling at Barney. There's no doubt that Barney realised how silly the sighting sounded. The US Air Force major he spoke to about the sightings 2 days later he says that on looking back, he feels the whole thing is incredible and he feels somewhat foolish. He just cannot believe that such a thing could or did happen. He says, on the other hand, that they both saw what they reported, and this fact gives it some degree of reality. Despite the apparently absurdity of the sighting, or perhaps partly because of it, if you were to invent something, surely you'd make it more plausible, I think that Barney was providing a sincere and accurate account of what he saw. The account he gave of the sighting remained consistent, whether he was talking to friends, family, UFO investigators, and throughout the hypnosis sessions. His behaviour during this time was completely consistent with an honest, intelligent, and rational man who is struggling to come to terms with something that simply doesn't fit into his view of the world. It's also interesting to recall that Dr. Simon, while convinced the accounts of abduction given under hypnosis were not real events, was equally vehement that the original sightings was a real event. I have no idea what Barney saw or believed that he saw. His description is much too detailed to allow us to reasonably assume he actually saw an aircraft or a helicopter, or Jupiter for that matter, but it was clearly something so odd and so disturbing that it affected him deeply and profoundly, both in the short term as he drove home, but also in the long term as it directly influenced the remainder of his life. Mm-hmm. When researching the evidence of this case, it was only at one point where I laughed out loud, and it typically arose from yet another brilliant Air Force explanation for what Barney saw: Jupiter. Whatever it was, it patently wasn't Jupiter, and therein lies the heart of this mystery. On that dark September night in the White Mountains, the lives of an ordinary man and his wife, with no strange beliefs, mental illness, or drug use, was changed forever by something they saw, or that they believed that they saw. They were, in fact, people just like me or you who reacted in the way that most people would in these circumstances. If they hallucinated the whole thing, perhaps that could happen to any of us. If they really did see what they claimed, perhaps that too could happen to any of us. Because of that, and even if you strip away all of the nonsense and irrelevance, this is still an intriguing and significant mystery. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the claims are made by that so-called laboratory, that the pink area of the dress being able to generate more energy, what kind of chemistry or physical reasoning did they give for that so-called like diagnosis of the pink areas of the dress? Was that ever like logged or catalogued? The claims, what the process at which it done it when it came into contact with water, or did they just make that outlandish claim and hope for the best? Well,
there's two ways of looking at this. One is that I would have to research that more and find out exactly what we said. And secondly, we're in the wrong business, mate.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the second one, I think. I think I'm going to go with the second one. That it's just that they're not the people that should have conducted any kind of analysis on.
Not at all.
On anything whatsoever, really. You know, it's
like Doug and Dave's brewski, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, what kind of weird, strange pictures haven't we looked at? I mean, the Bolero.
Yes, well, I've got them.
Yeah, I've got it here. So I've got it here. Yeah, I've got it.
Shield.
Yeah, the Bolero shield. So that's an Outer Limits episode.
Yeah.
Now,
not a very good one, to be honest.
No. But that's in between the actual event, isn't it?
Yeah.
And them and Barney having hypnotic regression.
Yeah. Well, apparently this was shown about, I think the episode was actually broadcast about, was it 2 or 3 weeks before the actual incident happened?
I defer to you for that, Steve.
I think it was. I'm not 100%, but I think it was only quite recent to the incident that it was actually shown.
Okay, so that's always worth. Let me have a look. Okay, now you got a guy called Brian Dunning, who's looked into the case, and he's turned around and said that it's 2 years between the actual experience and the hypnotic regressions, where a lot of the claims were made. and that's more than long enough for the couple to elaborate or embellish elements of the story.
Yeah, but I mean that was already known anyway. That the fact that Betty had these weird dreams a few days afterwards, and she'd been talking to her husband about them anyway. So I mean, there's sort of nothing new there. It's, there's nothing hidden. She would already have spoke to him about it.
Yeah, but of course, but the claims that both of them made, the fact that they can speak about it, and they've got 2 years to build up upon that story before they even undergo any kind of hypnotic regression. That has to be taken into account. Martin Kottmeyer, he's the one who's he was sort of like the one that was forerunning the charge against the TV shows and being responsible for influencing the description of the EBEs, isn't he?
Well, I think if we actually look back to a lot of UFO sightings, abductions, or whatever, we could tie in a lot of, shall we say, pop culture into it. But we get to that grey area then, don't we? Where do we dismiss things because it's happened at a time that things were happening on TV? Do we sort of turn around and say that people with post-traumatic stress disorder have watched too many, like Full Metal Jacket or Apocalypse Now or anything like that?
Well, the events on it's September the 19th, September the 20th, 1961. Apparently, the Bolero Shield was first broadcast on the 10th of February 1964, so well after the event.
Right, well,
and the hypnosis session was 12 days after the Bolero Shield. So the possibility of him seeing that before the hypnosis session is pretty high. It was broadcast before he was hypnotized, and obviously after the event.
I'm just having a look for my Twilight Zone and Outer Limits score. Just give me 1 sec, mate.
Okay. UFO enthusiast John Oswald accompanied Betty on a nighttime vigil in 1977, saying she's not really seen UFOs, but she's calling them that on the night that they went out together, and claiming that Mrs. Hill was unable to distinguish between a landed UFO and a street light.
Yeah, I mean, we know ourselves from past experience of being out on shall we say, the great sky watches of people who know airplanes and satellites from anything that shouldn't be there, and anybody who shouldn't be out there. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, you'll be au fait with this particular gentleman, Robert Schaefer.
Yeah.
Robert Schaefer, and she's been ridiculed for many other reasons, Betty Hill, since the event, because of going to conventions and conferences and being booed off the stage for some of the claims. Now, for somebody who was, been on board a craft and seen EBEs and, anyway, you were saying it was at the National UFO Conference in New York in 1980 to this, and Betty presented some UFO photos she had taken. Showing like over 200 slides of blips, blurs, and blobs against a dark background. And these were supposed to be UFOs coming in close, chasing her car, landing, etc. And after a talk, she'd exceeded its allotted time twice, so she'd gone well over the time limit, which is fair enough. You start talking, you get going, we can all do that. And Betty was literally jeered off the stage, as you just said, Steve, by what had been at first a very sympathetic audience. This incident, witnessed by many of ufology's leaders and top activists, I always like that terminology because most of them are self-proclaimed, removed any lingering doubts about Betty's credibility, and she had none because of it. In 1995, Betty wrote a self-published book, A Common Sense Approach to UFOs, and it's filled with delusional stories, such as seeing entire squadrons of UFOs in flight and a truck levitating above the freeway. And Robert Schaefer said that the Hills were a poster children for not driving when sleep deprived.
Well, I think we're all guilty of that at some point when you want to get home at night. I mean, I've drove for many an hour, but I've certainly not hallucinated a UFO encounter.
No, that's you.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody's different, but I can see where you're coming from the Betty side of stuff. But
yeah, but her credibility has just completely fell through the floor over the years. That's where I stand with it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
and that's it. Barney isn't there to back up her story because he passed away in 1969?
69,
Passed away in 1969. And everything that she's said since has quite literally fallen through the floor. Everything she said up until her death fell through the floor. Evidence that she's tried to present elaborations upon the old, the original story is second-hand accounts of what Barney said that he saw, that he necessarily didn't even say himself when he was under hypnotic regression. So she's added to it afterwards, and
that's the sad thing, though, isn't it? I mean, if she's throwing things like that in, and the guy's not there to back it up, that's bang out of order. But I mean, we've been to conferences where people have either made a mistake or whatever, and throw in one or two, and you can sort of say, well, they've got the facts wrong, or they've said it wrong or written it down wrong. But unfortunately for Betty, it got to a point where it was a case of she got into that mindset that wherever she would go, because she was supposed to be like the grandmother of abductions, that whatever she said people would believe, and that wasn't the case. The more she piled it on, the more people moved away from her.
Yeah, well, she made things up. That's the top and bottom of it. She made things up after the event. So anything she says has to be called into question, because she can fabricate evidence. She can fabricate what happened, and she did for many, many years, to the extent of where no serious UFO researcher believed anything she ever said. And that isn't lost on me at all.
No, and it's not lost on me either. But I still think there is something there originally what happened, which is unexplainable.
I think their explanation of what went on is unexplainable.
You're just nitpicking.
Well, I would, when the story can be picked apart, then I'm going to nitpick. Absolutely. Where do we go from here, Steve? What have you got lined up for us? Or we pretty much covered it?
I think it's only a case of about the people who were involved in it. Which
let's do it, Stevie. Let's go. Yeah, absolutely.
Just see if it works. 1 sec.
Yeah.
Told you Windows 10. Do you want to kick it out of the window?
Yeah. I think people in the chat are probably coming to the conclusion that I'm not overly bowled over by this particular case.
No, there's a lot of other ones, but I think this was one that
we'll go into them. We'll go into them, I'm sure. Yeah,
because
some very juicy ones.
It may be one that people may have heard of. So, right, okay, those involved.
Okay, let's do it.
There he is, Barney Hill. Born July 20th, 1922, died February 25th, 1969 of cerebral hemorrhage. Joined the US Army during World War II, was honorably discharged at the end of the conflict. Occupation of a postal worker, previously married before he married Betty Hill. Barney received multiple commendations for his work with the civil rights movement, including being honoured for the outstanding service to the community by the Governor of New Hampshire. He was invited to the inauguration of Lyndon Johnson in 1963, just to give credence to his renown in the New England community.
Okay, 1 sec, Steve. So he passed away of a cerebral hemorrhage, so a brain injury. Yeah, he was emotionally distraught during a hypnotic regression session.
Also, which isn't mentioned there as well, he'd also turned back to alcoholism, which previously he'd been 10 years clear of. And after the event of what had happened, he started drinking again.
Right, okay.
Betty Hill, née Eunice Elizabeth Barrett, born 28th of June 1919, died October the 25th, 1969, of cancer. Respectable social worker whose work left her as an esteemed member of the community. She had a master's degree in social sciences from the nearby University of New Hampshire and had become the supervisor of a local child welfare department. Occupation social worker, married Barney Hill, and she was active with her husband in the local chapter of the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People, and were pioneers in their own way, being an interracial couple. Walter Webb, this was the guy that when Betty sent the letter to NICAP and good old Leonard Kehoe got hold of the letter, he sent this guy out because he couldn't be bothered going himself. He was a lecturer to Charles Hayden Planetarium, headed the Massachusetts NICAP unit subcommittee at Cambridge, former member of the Smithsonian Institute Satellite Tracking Program, graduated in biology from Mount Union College, In 1954, started a career in astronomy under the teaching of Dr. J.L. Hynek. There's a famous figure in himself. At the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory's optical satellite tracking program from 57 to 58. No need to go through the rest, because basically he's just carrying on saying that he just went to interview the Hills. John G. Fuller, born 1913, died 1990. American author, mainly of non-fiction, regarding the supernatural extraterrestrials. He wrote the book about the Hill abduction, the interrupted journey, 2 lost hours aboard a flying saucer in 1966. Other works of note: Incident at Exeter, Aliens in the Skies, The Ghost of Flight 401, The Airman That Wouldn't Die, and The Ghost of 29 Megacycles. Dr. Benjamin Simon looks more like, what's it there? What was he called? Lou Grade. Dr. Benjamin Simon of Boston, who hypnotised, interviewed, and taped the Hills. Transcripts of those tapes, the heart of the seminal book about the Hill case, The Interrupted Journey, by John G. Fuller. During World War II, Simon served as Chief of Neuropsychiatry and Executive Officer at Mason General Hospital, the Army's chief psychiatric centre. Simon was interested in the possible benefits of hypnosis to soldiers suffering from severe stress. Excuse me. Colonel Benjamin Simon even served as an advisor to a documentary film directed by John Huston. Huston's film was created for the Army to educate the public about shell shock or post-traumatic stress disorder and its treatments for veterans coming home from the war. Although credited, Dr. Simon appears in segments of the film related to hypnotherapy, and the documentary is currently available online. The film, however, was suppressed by the Army until 1980. Aliens. There you go.
Keep the aliens there. Keep the aliens there for a second. Yeah, let's see the aliens as earlier. Different levels of EBE, if you like. There we go on the left, the leader. He was the one that was like evil and staring at Barney and so on and so forth. And the one that maybe, given the book and the star chart, showed the star chart to. Let me finish. Showed the star chart to Betty, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, the supervisor in the middle there. It almost looks like he's peeking around the door doing something very surreptitious.
Hello.
And the examiner on the right there, he's always a good one. The examiner, he looks like he's trying. He looks like he's got one lodged in, and he needs some kind of laxative. He looks like he's suffering, that fella.
Again with a harmonica involved.
Yeah. Harmonica.
And what I was trying to say was the guy at the top, if you see up there, you know, in the forest, is that him down there with his little postman's hat on? And he's like, going to get warm.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Yeah. But that's was he the artist that he's just shown then that you
Well, we're getting back to it.
Yeah, please.
Richard.
Yeah, is he the one responsible for all of them images we're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's his interpretation. So, I mean, I would imagine that the entity on the top near the name of the artist is the same guy that's referred to or rather the same guy depicted in the picture of the leader.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, all these are supposed to be by the same person. Excuse me. But I mean, only in a couple do you see, like, I mean, that's wraparound eyes on the leader. I suppose they were sort of slightly wraparound on the examiner. Same guy at the top with his little postman hat on. The only different one is the eyes on the supervisor.
Which looks a little bit more like your traditional grey, if it was, as it were.
Yeah. Well, the other ones sort of look like, well, bad 1950s B movies. Sort of.
Nice. Okay, yes. So have you any idea which one of each was given to Patrick for him to give this artistic impression or rendition of? Was it Barney? Was it Betty? Was it a mixture of the two? Who gave the description of which image that we're looking at?
As far as I'm aware, it was from both of them, from interviews that they were given here, there, and everywhere. He took a bit from Betty, a bit from Barney, and basically this is what we're left with. I think there is some other bits of artwork that he did in regards of the ship and the examination room.
Okay.
But I didn't put them on because I was thinking it was just more sort of like convincing, well, not convincing, but a case for the aliens.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I mean, again, this is just me because I'm a sci-fi geek anyway. I I don't particularly see anything there for like the Bolero Shield or what's it, Hocus Pocus and Frisbee. I mean, yeah, you could turn around and say, yeah, they've got like the rounded shape and some eyes, but I mean, on the second one of Hocus Pocus and Frisbee, it had like this ridge that went round his face, and the Bolero Shield was very similar as well. But as I tried to point out earlier on, that we've had these sort of descriptions of greys going back from bloody hell thousands of years ago, like Aboriginal stuff with the Wandjina, and even abduction stories long before that, even in biblical times. But one of the ones which would class as more recent was in the Buck Rogers comic strips from the 1930s. Was it King of the Tiger Men or something? Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff there previously. And then, it's a case of, well, how much you rewrite into it. But I find these images striking for the simple reason, from what came afterwards, if you understand what I mean. Like, say, with Whitley Strieber, with
Travis Walton and people like that.
And, even though I think looking back on it is quite laughable, the Linda Cartier case.
Yeah. Yeah, they're interesting. They're interesting images. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll get rid of this. We've seen this window. Okay. Well, we've done nearly 2 hours, so it's got to be getting close to the where we opened the doors to the floor, as it was. Like the people in the chat firing up questions or interpretations or whatever it is they want to do. So we'll fire this banner up. Yeah. Well, there we go. So please feel free to ask questions. Bear in mind there's a delay, and I could look on the YouTube channel, I suppose. Let's have a look what you wonderful people are putting there. In fact, no, I'm not. I kind of like the delay so we can get things wrong.
What again?
Yeah, kind of like that. Let's have that spinning doodah up in the top right corner there. Okay, so the spinning. Open the spinning doodah.
I thought there was something that happened if you turned a corner too quickly.
That does happen. You've got to be very careful. Right, so we'll the thing's there, so the questions are going up. I'll say hello to everybody. 2 hours in. So hello, how are you all? Hi there. Every single person that's come along, popped in, made a comment, and still here listening now. Thanks very, very much indeed. Obviously got nothing better to do on a Friday night, so
oh my god.
Yeah, if you can't do anything else, come and do us. No.
So
we've got winning chicken dinner. Okay, so yeah, I think they burnt them. We've either burnt out everybody who's watching this, or they've burnt themselves out watching it. But either way,
I think we're in the wrong room.
Yeah. Where are we at? Okay, so thanks, Eli. Thanks, Ron. Thank you, Matthew. Rev, how are you doing there, Sean? Nice to see you coming around. Claire, Devil's Child Paranormal. Hi, I think this might be the first time you've popped in. If not, then great. I am Ags, Claire. Who else have we got? Sealer the Mad Goblin.
Oh,
I think that might be somebody I've spoke to who's changed the name. Hiya, Shrimp. Hi there. Hi, Leslie, Carey. Who else have we got? Going back through the chat, there's so many of them, Ron, you get a double shout out. I might have mentioned you before. Michael, who hasn't come back because I gave him a timeout before he's gone off sulking. Sorry about that, Michael. I thought I'll hover over the chat and see what people are saying, and I'm gonna. Shit, I pressed a button and away you went. Sorry, Mike.
I thought you were saying shit to what I put up.
No. Nubs, thank you. Who else have we got? I don't think I can go back any further. I saw you, Brandon, so don't think you got away with it. I saw you. See there, Dave. Sealer the Mad Goblin. Sealer? That's Sheila. Could be Sheila. Poor Michael, says Claire. That's not making me feel any better. Oh, God. Nothing I could do. Yeah. David. Hello there, David. Thanks for dropping by, David S. Vingman. Thank you, sir. Oh, here we go. I thought it was Sealer. It's Sheila. No, I don't know anyway. Well, let's put this up. So Matthew, Second Star Survival says, do you think the experiments that were done could have degraded their minds? I mean, he died of a brain problem and she went down the rabbit hole of insanity. I'll put your comment up in a minute there, Brandon. Thank you for that. Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was Matthew. Yeah, it's Sheila. Yeah. The experiments that were done could have degraded their minds. I think he's referring to the experiments done by the alien-esque village people.
As Mr. Spock once said, there are always possibilities. I think if he died of a brain problem, it's slightly worrying that they were more interested in his genitals. I think if I had an experiment done there, I don't know whether it'd be my mind that went loony or something else might do. I don't know, but it's you know, we don't know, do we, what the extent of what was done. If anything was, and these people were genuinely abducted, then we can only take into account of what they said. You don't know if you're getting 100% of the story. You don't know if there's still repressed memories, what were there. Something iffy could have gone on. I don't know. I really don't. But, you know, if you're looking at that point of view, why wasn't it a case of then if Barney died in 69, that she didn't die a couple of years before or a couple of years after? Because, you know, it would have been a similar type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. And Matthew, he had suffered an injury during the war.
Yeah,
he suffered an injury,
didn't it? And he took it that way to basically, well, it destroyed his teeth, and that's why he ended up with false teeth.
So he had a head injury, basically, Michael, and Matthew, and he so degraded the minds. You know, I'm making any kind of sweeping comments that Betty was insane. I just think the UFO fervor, because of what went on and everything that surrounded it when it became public knowledge, sort of, she might have got carried away in a bit of that. I think she add credence to the fact that something genuinely happened, perhaps. I don't know. As me and Steve was talking about before, that's pretty much where we're at with it. Is we don't know, you know. But I don't think it's down to that. He suffered an injury during wartime. You know, he was a decorated war veteran.
I think Betty became overly obsessed. I mean, I think that's the only way you could sort of, should we say, kindly put it.
Thank you for that, Brandon Ghost Ops there, limey bastard. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with it, brother. That's pretty much where we're at. Now you know where I've been. Nowhere, but I'm here now. I'm everywhere and nowhere, baby.
I like the wind.
It's me and the warm bathroom demon. I like it. Yeah, I like that. We'll have that. She's giving me a purple star. Purple starfish, maybe. We'll go into that one. There, past life. Thank you for dropping by there. Nice to see you, PLE. And there's a question. Do you think I could be the experiment to be given for everyone to be the sacrifice for all humanity? I don't think we could afford to lose you, brother.
Does it include a boiled egg?
Or does it include any kind of anal probing? That's what you got to ask yourself, PLE.
Oh, not good.
Careful what you volunteer for.
Yeah. If you should tie your shoelaces, be very careful.
Yeah. I hope you're doing well anyway, brother. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that.
Cheers, dude.
Oh, here we go. So Matthew's on fire. Okay. Well, the stress on his brain could have been too much, but her mind was still fresh. What, that almost sounds like you're a cannibal. Fresh. Like refrigerated brains or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like fresh. You know,
it's crazy.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you could say that her mind was fresh there, Matthew. Yeah.
Push the button.
What's he like? What's he like, that Matthew? Yeah. Fresh. Yeah. But both of them were fresh from an alleged experience when they underwent the hypnotic regression. In broadly speaking, because it was just a couple of years afterwards. But Betty was having experiences and starting to see things in a dream, and they both knew something wasn't. One thing that Steve said before does hold true, and that's there's certain elements of it that you can't just explain away just for the sake of it, because it makes it easier to explain it away. And that being the fact that they both knew something was wrong very early on, and this is pre hypnotic regression, when both the minds were kind of fresh. To be fair.
So like fresh.
I know, I like that. It's like, I'm seeing a brain in a wrapper.
Yeah.
Take this off. Never left been lurking, PLE. Oh, you always lurking.
It's like, what's it in it? The oh God, I forgot the bloody names. Oh, I don't believe it. Mystery Science.
I've seen one.
The guys with the trays with the brain in them. When I left your brains in my arms.
Oh yeah, brain guy. The observers.
Yeah, that's it. Oh,
yeah,
God,
the observers. Yeah. Thanks very much, Ghost Ops. It's good to be back. Been a little busy, but I'm back on the scene now. So that's like a warning for everybody to try and avoid me, I suppose. In many ways,
I've been dragging him out. Been dragging him out.
Yeah, yeah, you have actually. He's under duress from my peers, you might say. So thanks for that, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Excuse me, through your what?
My peers.
Oh, sorry, I misheard stuff.
Is it Leslie? Leslie. I'm pretty sure that it would fuck me up if I got kidnapped by fresh-brained aliens. I think it would all of us.
I remember.
Okay, Mags.
In 1976, when it happened to me, I remember saying,
"What? Just the once?"
No, it's been a couple of times actually. Most of the times I've been managed to sort of play cards with him and get out of it, but sometimes it's been a bit iffy.
Okay, now I need you to scant a glance at that one by Mags Myths, Legends and Legends.
So earlier on, you said that you saw the craft, it was silent. Do you think it could have been some kind of sonic plane they saw? It would be silent, the slight noise would be after. I'm not sure on that for the simple reason, looking at technology that we have now, and also the possibility that was what was coming out of the skunk works at that time. One, it would be difficult for a plane not to make any noise. Two, it would be difficult for one which would be able to hover on the spot like that with the shape of what was given, and the fact that any of the light what was on board of it didn't shine onto the ground, which is a little odd in itself. I mean, we do have what they call a NOTAR system, which is a put onto certain helicopters, so that no tail rotor, basically that's what it is, and it feeds the sound signature through a baffle plate, so that literally you can land a helicopter and take it off and there's no sound. I think if you look for an old Bell advert from the late 1990s, early 2000s, it shows you the helicopter landing and taking off in silence. So the technology is there, but I think it's only a recent thing, not something that would have been around at that time, and certainly not a plane. It's definitely outside of something that I think that skunk works would have had at the time, and I don't think it's something they would have tried out on people either. It's like, again, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy about, you know, the sending a small alien down who walked around with an antenna on his head making beep beep noises just to annoy people. I don't think they'd sort of tend to do that. I can understand why they'd want to test equipment, but I really don't think that was what it was. If it's something that they saw, I think it was something which was outside of the realm of that we have.
Okay, the way that that's worded is almost leaning towards the fact that it's a plane that's gone supersonic, and it's the sound. It's broke the sound barrier. It's quiet at the time, and then the sound barriers followed because the plane's going faster than the speed of sound. Is sort of like how that alludes to me.
But if that's the case, then there's no way that it could be hovering, because it would have to be traveling.
Absolutely, yeah, it would have to be moving.
Yeah.
Wait a minute now. I've just one up the bum and no harm done. Where's this coming?
Excuse me.
Oh, don't even ask. But that was a good question. That actually, Max, thanks for that one. Yeah, that was a good one. That's Eli's alleyway. That's what Eli's alleyway. What the hell is going on in the chat? It doesn't take long for. You're welcome. Yeah. Okay. Cheers, Eli. It doesn't take long for it to descend into madness, them lot out there.
I love the
Should do.
UFO stuff. I
Thank
really do.
Oh, Dave, here we go. Fava beans and a nice candy.
Silence of the Hams. Oh, perhaps
Thanks very much. Thank you, Shrimp Shacky. Appreciate that.
Miss you, Doris.
I'm feeling the feeling the love. Thank you, people.
Feed.
Special price on fresh brains today. Somebody have a word with Matthew for me, will you? Oh, here we go.
It's 35 pence a pound.
There we go. And there's the fresh brains. Thanks, Sheila, developing the. Oh, here we go. I'm always a little bit like wary of highlighting this guy's comments. I've done it without reading it. Here we go.
Did anybody else happen to see the resemblance to Nubs on that three-fingered baby alien picture?
Oh.
I was looking at more the small hand to be more like, what's his face?
Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle, yeah, that's the one.
Brandon.
Isn't that something you put on your cheese butter?
Oh, unbelievable. First Sonic flight was 947.
Excuse me, Dave. Why does Steve sound like the Prime Minister of Alien Diddlerville? Thanks, Ghost. I have no idea if that's an insult or a compliment or whatever.
I don't know. You're further down the chat than I am. I'm still like highlighting other things that have gone on. Is it?
Oh,
here we go.
From the beginning.
Eli always wants to know. Eli always wants to know about anal probing. Is this true, Eli? Is this true? Let me know. DM me on Twitter. I'm sure I can put you in contact with some fresh-brained aliens that can do it.
Just go to your doctors and say you want to check your prostate. Please feel free to ask questions.
Right. I think the specialist who did the memory recalls already believed they were making it up because at that time they were a mixed couple, and in America, even at that time, they would have blown it.
Well, he did say, didn't he, that he didn't exactly believe that it was an alien craft. He honestly believed that he saw something. But for me, I think he sounded like a Patrick McGowan type psychiatrist, hypnosis guy, because he was just like, and now you will tell me this, and now you will tell me that. I was never really impressed with Dr. Simon. It was weird because my first impressions of obviously as a youngster growing up, we didn't have the internet in them days, so I didn't get to hear any of the proper Hill tapes. So the only first time I saw that was when they did the UFO incident, which had James Earl Jones of Darth Vader fame playing Barney Hill, and was it Estelle Parsons playing Betty Hill, and the guy who played Dr. Simon, he was like such a congenial sort of nice little guy, sort of asking questions and that. And I always thought that was, and then when I heard the tapes, it was like, whoa, hang on a minute, this isn't what I expected. So yeah, it was strange in itself. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from about this guy, but it's another one of those strange things where you look at it and you have to weigh it up on both sides.
Okay, that's a fair comment, that actually, Ron. Yeah, and I think it was alluded to by Leslie as well earlier in the chat that anybody talking about UFOs or making claims they'd seen UFOs would be mocked or ridiculed for doing so. So yeah, as a collective entity, a big group of peeps, I suppose we would be called loons. And now we're investigating. Yes.
He's good. You know what? I just love the subject. I really do. I mean, like I say, I've followed it since I was 12 years old. Simple as that. I've absolutely loved it. And some of the stuff that I've read over the years, some of the stuff I've been investigating over the years, it just makes me think like, yeah, get in there.
I think you're doing yourself a great disservice there, Sheila. Brains and caramel. Oh, Matthew, what have you started? Yeah, there's that ghost ops is off his nut. Here we go. I'm going to highlight this particular comment, Leslie. I've seen one hovering directly in front of me, silent as the grave. I think it does have to be noted that I myself have had several experiences where I've seen something that I can't explain in the sky. I've done I think it was a month or so ago. a stream about one of them experiences. Steve himself also has. So it's not like we're not here to ridicule particular things, just present particular historic cases and give our interpretations of them, and then obviously listen to what you guys or read what you guys say in the chat and take it from there. So it's not about believing or disbelieving, just going with anything and everything that we can. So I'm sure that you're not on your own, Leslie, is basically what I'm saying.
I mean, we both had experiences. I mean, like I say, you've seen stuff. I mean, I've had something hovered in front of me less than a quarter of a mile away, not making a noise at all. Yeah, I could be sort of stuck in to say that he's I'm a loon as well, if that's going to be the case. But you can't knock the fact that, things there. I mean, this thing hung in the sky exactly the same way that a brick shouldn't. But we all see something, and that's it. That's our experience. And whether people believe it or not, as long as we know, that's what makes what really matters.
There, I do think he sounded genuine in his voice clips. He sounded terrified. I agree with that, Mags. Completely, he did. Am I alone in thinking she seemed to revel in it? No, you are not. That's a big part of it for me. What we ascribe or attribute that to, of course, is always going to be open to conjecture. But I agree completely, 100% with that statement.
That was the difference really between them. If you look at Barney's, his sessions, he was like, oh my God, it was so frightening to him. Yet to her, it was like, yeah, jolly boys day out. This is so much fun. Really? I know damn well if I was being bloody cornered in a field by people looking at me in a spaceship saying, I'm going to capture you and I'm going to do really ridiculous things to you. No, you're not. Simple as.
Okay. That's you replying to Brandon. Let's have a look. Yeah, he's again. Obviously, this doesn't go just for UFOs, as you know, Kerry. This is any kind of paranormal or supernatural kind of experience that people might have. Is exactly that. People, the fear of ridicule, the fear of doubt, the fear of being mocked or ostracized by your community, especially at various points during history when these things have happened. People have been. I've just seen a comment by Matthew. These things have caused people to be almost like shunned by their local area. They've been ostracized. I'm just going to highlight this. Yeah, we'll read your stories, kid. Don't you worry about that. Anytime you want. You got to keep your eye on that Eli fella. Is that Eli? Is that Eli? It's Eli. It's Eli, all right. Okay, yes, we've got that one. Let's have a look. Oh, interesting. I've seen a couple here. I'm going to do these.
Said the actress of the bishop.
Yeah. Stupid Bluetooth earbuds. You need to deal with that. Let's have a look at it. Do you know why? Do you know why? It's because it's true. It's true. That's why. Steve sounds like an English gentleman. He sounds completely northern as you like. I think I've got more of an androgynous accent where it can be. From anywhere within the UK, whereas Steve just like total out and out like Mank. Personally,
listen, there's a difference between a Mank accent and a stupid Oasis accent.
That's true, our kid.
I'm just walking around like I've just shit my pants.
I'll do you.
Hey, what you on about, eh? Come here.
Well, in America, the only people they interview are the backwoods Appalachian. Appalachian, I've been told it's called. You don't pronounce it Appalachian, so.
Appalachian hillbillies are the tinfoil hat Californians. Over here, we call them the Welsh. Uh-oh. You've had a comment deleted, Dave.
Oh, that's always good. I think we know who wore the pants in their house. That's exactly where I'm going with it myself, actually, there, Mags. I think Betty were calling the shots. There's Michael. He's come back even uploading before. Hiya, Michael. How are you? Everybody read Michael's comment so he knows that he's not been. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. Leslie just thinking Dave deleted your comment. I did. I did, Michael. Yeah, I'm surprised you come back.
Hi, Michael. He said he'd do it again in a moment's notice.
Yeah, I'll do it again. I was clicking on it. I thought, what's his comment about? Although it does have to be said, you were plugging your own live rather than paying attention to mine, Michael. Don't think that went unnoticed, because it didn't. Yes, I know I have experienced it badly, so I am quite. Oh, I don't know what's going on.
I have no idea on that one.
Okay.
They mentioned nuts, so that's worrying.
Banjos at dawn. Banjo. Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Oh, here we go. He's proper got an axe to grind tonight, this guy, hasn't he?
I'll be good.
Who's upset you, Matthew?
Probably me.
There's nothing wrong with sounding like Mr. Osborne, is there?
I don't know. Why is he? I can tell you a story about Ozzy Osbourne if you want. A true story.
Is this a true story?
It certainly is. Many years
okay.
ago.
All right, one second. Let's give it its correct build-up. Does everybody in the chat want to hear a true story? Never mind that, Nobs. I'm seeing what you see in Nobs. Although I just called you Nobs. Oh, it's descending into madness, this one. End it, Dave. End it.
You don't
people want to... Yeah. Come on, answer me. Do you want to hear a true story?
I think that's a no, so we'll leave it.
No, don't give up so easily. I know these people, they get distracted easily if they start chatting to one another. Do you want to hear a true story? Yes, please. Oh, no. We've got multiple yeses, Steve. So please take the floor.
Okay, this is only going to be quick. Many years ago, when I was a youngster, I used to be a chef, and I used to work at the Manchester Evening News in Manchester. And there was a lad there called Mark, and he said to me, Steve, you're good at football. Do you want to join our football team? So I went, how do you know I'm good at football? He said, I don't, but you are. So anyway, I ended up joining this football team, and we used to play for Poynton, which was like somewhere over the other side of Stockport, but was a little bit posher. So when we played football there, we used to go into Poynton, and there's a wine bar there. Now, I don't drink wine. I drink beer. I'm a good old-fashioned bloke. So anyway, I goes in this wine bar, and I'm sat there having a drink, and I'm looking over, and there's this guy at the bar looking over at me. So I'm thinking, what's he bleeding looking at? I thought, you know what? I says to my mate, Mark, says, don't you think he looks like Ozzy Osbourne? He went, bloody hell. If it isn't, then he's certainly somebody who looks the bloody spitting image of him. So I thought, oh, God, this is a bit weird. So I decided at that point that I should go to the toilet. So I disappears to the loo, and this guy comes in, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and he went, what you looking at? And I went, well, I was just amazed at the fact that you look like Ozzy Osbourne. He says, because I'm Ozzy fucking Osbourne. So I went, all right. I said, well, you've been looking at me all night. He said, actually, I haven't. He said, there's a mirror on the wall, and I've been looking at it, and I thought it was somebody who looked like Ozzy Osbourne who was looking at me. So at this point, I was getting severely lost. So I said, okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to look at you. No, it's not a problem. I just thought I'd let you know that I'm me. And I went, right, okay then. So I'm walking out, and I just said to him, he said, what the hell are you doing in a wine bar in Stockport? He says, I haven't a fucking clue. I think I own it. And that was it. That's my story.
Right.
It's a true one, but there you go.
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one's what's going on in the chat off these nutters, these absolute nutcases. Like, that's obviously directed at you.
What?
No.
Oh, Steve, you said it. He's going to be quick. Nah, I don't think so. Never cast.
That's how I read it, Sheila. That is a Welsh loo.
Oh, what? Welsh loo?
Yeah. Wait a minute. The chat's moving too fast. Oh, well, there you go.
That's a good
Brandon,
sign. I'm Welsh.
Brandon said that before. Benny Hill, do you mean?
Oh, Mr. B. Dave looks like no, Benny Hinn was he? He's like a God.
I don't know.
He's one of these preacher type peoples. You know, what's he called? That American guy did all the preaching. Hallelujah.
Do you want a list?
No, give us a clue. And no, it's not Lionel Blair.
I think we should obviously give some kind of rating system as well to Steve's impression of Ozzy Osbourne, because that was the other thing that had me creasing was your Ozzy impression. People definitely sounds like Ozzy. Here we go.
Excuse me,
I think
I would. I do impressions.
Don't you? Yeah, definitely sounds like Ozzy. I think in the now, Sheila, I think you mean the fact of the behaviour rather than the impression. But I don't know. People. Here we go. Yeah, fastest milkman in the West.
Yep.
Right, I'm not putting up with this shit. I'm going to start blocking you lot. I don't have to put up with this.
Hey, I've got a cunning plan.
putting up with this kind of abuse.
It can only.
Yeah, there you go. Called it. Yes, the behaviour. There we go. My radar's working at least. Yeah, Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West. Yeah.
What was the name of the guy that was in the video with him who played? Oh God, what's his name? Something from Teddington, and he drove the baker's van. What was the name of the guy who played him? He used to be in the Benny Hill show a lot, didn't he?
The little bald guy.
No, the Mr. McGee. He used to, what's it being, the Charlie Drake stuff as well, didn't he? He used to pull Charlie Drake over the counter. You know what I mean? The black hair.
Yeah, I do know what you mean, yeah. Thank you, Matthew. Oh.
See, look at that. You're a legend in your own lunchtime, and I'm just a bottom of the menu.
There you go. I'm being a good goblin. That makes a nice change, that, Sheila. That makes a nice change. You know that you're in a bad position and getting the munchies when you start eating like pieces of spinach.
Oh my God, that's disgusting. You'll end up like Popeye. You'll have one arm bigger than the other.
I've got one arm bigger than the other anyway, brother. We won't go into that.
Do you know what's it? It's almost biblical in the problems that that happened with Popeye.
Oh, me.
Yeah, because Bluto tried to mount Olive.
Oh.
I'll keep quiet. I'll be
That
good. I got told off last time, so I'll be good.
Are you sure about? Are you sure about that, Claire?
You're scoffing, aren't you?
I did tell you that.
Yeah, but I thought you were only kidding.
No, I'm eating spinach.
What are you scruffy get?
Yeah. What? Sheila, is that a good one? Is that a good one or a bad one?
What kind of?
Oh yeah, I've just realised. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's one arm bigger than the other. One arm bigger. Not for me, Rev. I'm chewing spinach. Davis and Popeye from so much out. Matthew.
I remember many years ago having a conversation with Dave where somebody had offloaded a lot of pornographic videos with him, and he said, "I'm having nothing to do with that," and he was bored stiff for the next 6 hours.
6. That's just playing at it. That's amateur stuff. Okay. What's this? I think that's epic.
It certainly is.
I think that's epic.
Do you know when I used to work on the radio station? There's a guy came in once and he said to me, he said, do you fancy putting my story out on air because I think it'd be interesting? So, because we were like slow on news that day, I said, okay, we'll come in on the news hour and see what you could do. And he came in and he basically said that he'd won a world record for something really weird. So I said, what is it that's really weird that's going to be like a news item? And he says, I actually eat mallets and it's been really good for me. So I said, what do you mean? He says, yeah, I eat mallets. I said, are you a professional? He says, no, and I'm an amateur.
Oh, God. He was an amateur, was he? Right. You out there in chat think I'm bad. Well, check him out, yeah? I tell you what, that spinach is shite.
It is.
No wonder Popeye wanted to go around knocking people out.
The best thing you can do with spinach is actually salt it and put balsamic vinegar in it and put it in a wok and toss it with some like Mediterranean herbs. That's about it.
Best thing you can do with spinach is shove it up your ass.
Well, I wanted to say that, but try to be good.
Get something more palatable to eat. Anyway, completely off topic as per usual. Is there any? Does anybody even remember what we've been talking about tonight? And if so, is there any questions related to it?
Popeye
any questions about Popeye being abducted by aliens? Please feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll feel free to ignore them completely.
Speak to us, please.
Do something. We've lost all focus on this live stream.
I'm sorry about it. It's my fault, and I take the blame.
God, this is absolutely disgusting. This.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll put it in the correct there, Claire. I'll highlight that because it's true. Put it in the bin. Now that's spinach. I was at the big arms, but either way it works. Yeah, Jesus. Yes, yeah.
I don't think he had spinach.
No.
Mind you, it could have been a reason for a possible. Oh, never mind, not even going to go into that.
Yep, don't go there. Anything. Oh, this is just absolutely fell to bits. He remembers fresh brains. Yeah, spinach and raw brains might work there. Actually, Matthew, you've got a good point. Oh, you feel like you're chewing for no return whatsoever. And you're just getting nothing out of this deal whatsoever. It's like jaws are flapping, but no taste. Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Hard question, said the actress to the bishop.
1 minute. Let's just highlight this one. Oh, yeah. I always knew Popeye was hard.
Oh, matron.
Oh.
Do you think that it's real or fake?
Oh.
I do think
Mags.
Me personally, I do think that something went on, but I don't know what. And I do think that Barney believed quite a lot, but I do think a lot of his belief was influenced by his missus.
I think Barney had a medical condition, and the influence from his missus drove the claims. Personally, I'm massively reticent to think that this was a real event, but that's just my opinion. I think in lots of areas it falls down. There's lots of scientific explanations and medical conditions to explain the claims, and with a lack of tangible proof on behalf of the Hills, it's a tough one. It does stand as being the forerunner of a lot of. It was a precedent within a lot of things that went on within the ufology for many years afterwards, and that can't be explained. But I don't think it was. It's just, it doesn't stand up for me. Oh,
Ask away.
Yeah, go on then, Leslie.
If a fella met a fella in a field of itches.
God, I wish this was fried chicken.
It's not. It's fried.
It's not fried chicken, no. Oh. Yeah. Leslie, don't be shy. It's too late for that now.
Not on this show.
Well, we'll do this one for Matthew. Do you think they started to believe or hate their stories? That why she started to go crazy?
No, I think she was borderline nuts after a few years anyway, when she started to realise that people were listening to her story.
I think Barney completely believed what he was saying to be true.
Yeah.
I think Barney really did. He suffered a brain injury that eventually was the cause of him losing his life. He was a known alcoholic, recovering alcoholic, then alcoholic again. You know, the way that she acted throughout the entire episode, it was her having dreams of it that prompted Barney to then start having recollections himself. And bits of that was spurred on by his fear of radiation and so on and so forth. But for the most part, she was sort of spurring Barney on with the dreams that she claimed she had. And then afterwards, after the event has been, everything that she said has been almost completely just laughed at. As far as ufology is concerned, it's completely fell through the floor.
Yeah.
So I think Barney believed it happened. I think Betty was the biggest driving force in convincing him that it had. Here we go, Steve. I'll let you have this one.
I think it helped with their political process. Sorry, they needed highlighted obviously not in this way. You could sort of go for that if they did it immediately, but waiting 4 years for it to happen, I'm not so sure.
Okay, I've just clocked what you put there, Leslie. Bear with me. I think they used it. I think it out with their political protest. Sorry, do they need it highlighted? Obviously, but not in this way. Okay, I can see, that already having some kind of leeway into the sort of press because it was sort of known because of this. But I don't want to take away from the very valid fight that they were trying to do for equal rights in the States and stuff like that, because obviously that was something that was very dear to them and something that they really wanted to push through, and that's very laudable, you know.
They'd already done that, hadn't they? And then got in with the Lyndon B. Johnson, who'd already recognised what they'd done, and they were invited to the inauguration, but there was no mention of the UFO for that. So, you know,
they didn't need to be, did they? They were already known for it by then. They don't have to mention it; they were already known for it.
Exactly.
So, I think that's a good point, Mags. Personally, I do. This particular one for me doesn't hold a great deal of credence. There's too many things going on that can be questioned.
Oh, this is from Leslie earlier, isn't it?
When you say kept changing, you on about due to perspective, Leslie, or that it was changing even when it came closer. It wasn't just point of view and perspective that made it appear larger as it got closer. Oh no! Wait a minute, Steve.
It's atypical shape-changing UFO, isn't it?
I'll come to you in a second, Sheila.
Well, I don't know about aliens changing. I have heard of the UFOs to change shape, size, colour, whatever, to sort of match surroundings. It's like it's often been looked at as some kind of chameleon camouflage or whatever.
Chameleons.
Yeah, chameleons. Yeah, chameleons.
Oh dear
me. Yeah. So
you always have to take it one step further.
Sorry,
no, it was good. It was good.
Thank you. It's not unheard of. It's very rare. Like I say, I've not heard of aliens, but I mean, that's not to say that that's not the case. but I've certainly heard of ships changing size, shape, and colour to fit in with surroundings.
Betty nuts with power. Barney brain injury caused delusions. Cause of Betty's claims. I certainly think Betty.
Likely.
I certainly think Betty fueled it.
Yeah.
And I think there's no refuting the fact he had a brain injury at war. Well, he had a head injury that, pretty much mashed his jaw to the extent where he lost all his teeth and was using false teeth. He passed away of a brain hemorrhage. So and everything she said has pretty much been like put to bed. So it doesn't look good.
No.
No, it doesn't look good. Okay, what else have we got in here? Yeah, the aliens also changed. Okay, 1 second. Welcome back, Brandon. Good to have you back, brother. Leslie says. Then the aliens left the tiny ship and got big again. Then vice versa.
Sounds like a TARDIS. Like I say, I'm not being funny, but at the back of my mind, I've got something like a spider sense tingling of something that I may have read of this, or it could be in regards of, again, and this is going back to what we were discussing before about television, sci-fi, and that there was an Outer Limits episode where creatures came out of a very small craft and then turned bigger. I can't remember the name of the episode. Oh, good Lord, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I forgot it. But there you go.
Thanks, Magsy. Appreciate you stopping by. Thank you, as always. You take care. Thank you.
Cheers, Mags.
Okay, and we've done 2 3/4 hours. Is there any more kind of questions or statements or anything anybody wants to make? Anything? So, okay, so summary, Steve, while we're waiting to see if anything's incoming or if not. Summary, I know that you sort of give one because it was like mentioned in the chat there, but to one another as the people that do this. It has to be mentioned, Nudge, of course, wanted to do this. He'll be here next time. Other things take precedence, but he will be here the next time we do a chat. So if anybody's wondering where Nudge is, he's fighting the bad guys, he's fighting aliens and everything.
He's a spy.
I think it has to be noted as well, actually, in respect to Leslie. She said I was 11, so it could have been. So respect to you there, Leslie, for saying that. Oh, yeah. Dear me. I'll come to that in a minute, Sheila. Just 1 sec. It's all. No, you didn't, brother. But the floor is yours in a second.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, but they might not have heard of them over there in the States. But I was going to say, why do chocolate biscuits need knees?
Well, yes. That's why. What's it? Penguins don't eat polar bears. No, polar bears don't eat penguins because they can't get the wrappers off. I used to collect alien figurines.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
I once had a model of the alien from Alien that I painted up so well that I used to have to lock it up in the cupboard at night because I was crap scared of it.
I like these ones. This is a good one. If galaxies have died millions of years ago, that our civilizations wouldn't they have been way more advanced than we are? I would say there's a high possibility some of the life forms contained within, yes, and some of them maybe not. Wouldn't you?
Yes, definitely. It's one way or the other, and it depends which way the civilization goes.
Yeah, I think there's some of them yes, some of them no. I think that was a good one. That's Shire. Thank you for that one. Yeah, very fair comment. Good statement. Yeah, good question. Good posit. What's this? Ron's all over it. Ron, that was a good one. That's Shire. Thank you.
I remember many years ago, I saw a cigar-shaped object in the tobacconists.
Oh dear. You know, at one time it was just me on Nosh that had to put up with this, but now that the
You've
people
given
that
me-
want, yeah,
You've given me a new platform.
the people in the chat are seeing it too. They're having to put up with it.
Well, I'll stay off in future. I'll just be good and sit in the background.
There we go. Yes, they do. That's Claire. Claire, you are an unknown penguin expert.
I don't know how to answer that.
The thing is, you're sort of always waiting for a punchline with him. And this could be genuine, you know.
I get that a lot.
I'm waiting to see if he answers to that. PLE, yeah, he was in there earlier. I think. He's laughing, so I think he's describing a penis.
Oh dear, that's not good. I have a PhD in penguins.
That stands for a penguin's expert device or degree. Yes, you were, weren't you, Brandon? Yes. Okay, I'm not eating any more of that spinach.
I'm not even with a penguin.
No, it's just disgusting. Okay, right. Where are we up to? Right, we're up to nowhere. The last one that made any sense whatsoever was Shires. Thank you, Kerry. I thought he was. Popped in earlier, didn't he? Any more questions or comments? I will call it and leave you wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, magical mystery people. Anything relative? You can't remember what we're talking about. I'm like, what were they on about them two?
I haven't a clue what were we on about tonight.
The thing is, it's still live. We can't play it back and pretend we were listening.
Was it Benny Hill?
Benny in and Benny Hill.
No.
I remember, actually, funnily enough, like Steve, when you see the videos that like the precursors to these streams, Steve does the animations for it. We had a Benny Hill one. I wish I'd have like got that ready to go.
Have you not got it? No.
Yeah, I've got it, yeah, but it's yes. yes, look. Put bacon on the spinach. That's what was going wrong there, Ron. You're absolutely right. Everything tastes good with bacon. You could eat a dog turd and the bacon and make it taste good. Nah, probably not. Nah, probably not, no. Even I don't believe that. Okay.
I thought you were playing the Benny Hill then.
I'd love to be able to. It's just like this stream, yeah, can be a royal pain in the
all right.
testiculans, can't it, to get things up and running. Live after this to let Dave go off. Good. So you're going live. I do believe Michael said that you were going live. And then I totally squashed his comment. So how much of a bastard am I? Sorry about that, Mike. Love you really, dude. Oh, God. So Ghost Ops is going live in a little while. If people migrate over there, that's good. Thanks, Leslie. It was nice for you to pop in.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Much appreciated.
Okay, so if we're done, we're done. Appreciate everybody coming in. Thanks to every single person that's made an effort. By making an effort, all you've done is click on the link, and that's effort enough in my books. If you've made a comment, even much more love. Basically, it's not really anything without you guys being there. That's the top and bottom of it, you know.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you coming in. Sheila, Ron, Claire, Mags, Leslie, Carey, Mark. We get. What's that? All right. Oh yeah. Okay. We can raid PLE. It looks like there's plenty of people going live tonight. Shrimp. Thanks for coming in, Shrimp. Saw Jillian earlier. Ron. I'm not saying you again there, Claire. Leslie, we've had Leslie. We've had Mags. Matthew from Second Star talking about his brains. Rev, thanks for coming in. Nubs, saw you earlier, so that's always nice to see you, Nubs. You know that. Eli, you came in causing trouble. Much appreciated, sir. Always like a bit of Eli madness. Who else have we had? Let's flick. Too much flicking and you'll go blind, guys.
Said the
I
actress.
can only... Shire, saw you. Yeah, Shire. I'm here all night trying to find people. Basically, thanks to everybody who came in tonight, and thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to anybody who may watch in the future. It's massively appreciated. Steve?
I think it's been emotional. I think it's been a really good night. We've got another the old cases across, and it's been it's been good. I think we've both got the different sides of the the Hill case across. People have had a good listen to it, and hopefully that if they want to listen to some of it themselves, they can go out and get their heads banging against something and say, oh, well, they didn't say this, they didn't say that, and have a look for themselves. That's basically what we do it for, generate the interest.
Absolutely 100% o'clock. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to one another. Show the love.
Definitely.
Make sure you stay safe during all this madness, people. And it just remains for me to say thanks very much for tuning in. We'll be back, obviously, it'll be in a couple of weeks with another one. UFO Type 1 alien abduction tonight. So maybe next one, conspiracy theory, maybe a haunting. Yeah, maybe a conspiracy theory, maybe a haunting, maybe. We'll have to see. Maybe something like that. We try and mix it up every week so that they're all not the same. Maybe another cryptozoological one.
Time travel with Mr. Ben.
There you go. How much of a cheeky bastard was he? he never bought anything, did he? All he ever did, he just constantly went into the same shop, tried on the clothing, which was always like medieval period clothing or some kind of weirdness like that, and never bought a thing.
If you ever get the chance, watch the one when he was a chef. Absolutely.
The amount of shop soiled items that he's responsible for. What he's been rubbing his crotch up against. You know what I mean? Some poor sod's got to go in afterwards and buy that when he's had his bollocks in it. He's like, he never bought a thing. Absolute disgrace.
Quantum Leap was based on this event.
Oh, he's unbelievable, that guy. With a fish to bend. In a bit, Saggit it. I'll join the cryptid. There you go, Matthew. No problem. You guys are welcome. Thank you for the information. Very interesting. Yeah, I appreciated that you said that. We always find it interesting, which is why we do it, and because we've got nothing else better to do.
Yeah. We have no friends.
Spread of information. A bit lit Tesco's. I think everybody's just saying bye to one another now. Thanks, everybody. We're going to get out of here. Thanks, Nubs. Had fun, Dave and Steve. I'm going to go eat. I'll see you all later. I'll be live tonight with 10 p.m. Eastern. Everybody's live tonight, so you're going to have to be in 56 different places if you want to follow anybody. But it's always good. So Brandon's going live. Nubs is going live. Mike is going live if he's still there. If he's even talking to me anymore, he's going live. I should have blamed Steve for that, but my name comes up when I do it. So
what do you mean you blame me?
Well,
cheeky get.
Yeah, you know how it goes. Steve, take care, Nubs. Yeah, take care, Nubs. You take it easy. Everybody, take it easy. And like I said, show the love and all the rest of it. We're going to get out of here. So bye bye from me.
And a great big goodbye from me. Take care and see you soon.